Chapter 148. This huge mountain rock, except for the side where the 9 steps of Lingwan Road were located, was a slope with a slight slope. The other 3 sides were completely cut down by Xiantian's saber. It was very smooth and looked uncoordinated. When Xiantian, Li Bai, and the others first ascended Tongtian Mountain, the others were very careful and did not dare to destroy things without permission. Only Xiantian, after a few slashes, dug Lingwan Road, Wondrous Stone Mountain, and the martial arts arena below back from Tongtian Mountain. For Xiantian, this was something worth showing off and being praised by others. Therefore, he often found people to listen to him talk about this achievement. However, he now found that after Jiang Xi listened, he only calmly observed Lingwan Road. Xiantian suddenly felt a burst of dullness. There was no pleasure at all. He said snappily, "You brat, can't you show some surprised expression? Wow, so powerful!" Xiantian was helpless. "Forget it, I won't beat around the bush with you. I have been busy with other things these days and didn't have time to return to the training camp. You must have been waiting anxiously. In the Battle of Tongtian Mountain, you performed well and made a great contribution. According to our Genten Budokan's rules, you will be rewarded for your contributions. Now, let's talk about the reward." Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. "If you talk about this, I will be in high spirits." Xiantian continued. "I will give you 2 choices. One is a spiritual object, and the other is a cultivation method of the spirit nurture stage. Can I have both?" Jiang Xi did not even think about it. He was already an adult. What choice did he have to make? "You are not honest at all." Xiantian shook his head. Then he smiled and said, "This time, our martial arts school obtained a total of 40,000-year-old spiritual object level lotus heads. According to your contribution, you can get 5% of them, which is 2 lotus heads. Since you want both the spiritual object and the cultivation method, then I will exchange one of the lotus heads for the cultivation method. Are you satisfied?" Xiantian seemed easy to talk to. Jiang Xi immediately agreed. He was very satisfied. In terms of value alone, the cultivation method of the spirit gathering realm was definitely more valuable. The Xiantian smiled and said, "It's just these. I reckon that when you return, you'll also complain that I'm stingy. In the Heavenspan Mountain this time, apart from the phase, we also had additional gains. That expert from the Peacock Kingdom, Shalok, contributed a set of visualization techniques that can condense one's spiritual sense. It's very valuable, so I'll make a copy for you. You can study it when you get back. A visualization method to condense the soul?" Jiang Xi was very interested in this. He recalled the scene at that time. That Shah Rukh had used an ancient parchment full of Sanskrit to pay for the tuition fee that Xiantian had demanded. Yes, after a martial artist reaches the bottleneck of Class A, if he wants to go further, he must condense his spiritual sense. Moreover, the strength of a martial artist in the spirit accumulation stage is also related to his spiritual sense. Thus, you should know the value of this visualization method, right? Xiantian explained. Using such an important thing as the tuition fee was Shaluk's brain. Jiang Xi did not finish his words, but the meaning was obvious. Xiantian laughed. "I'm guessing that Shaluk hasn't fully understood the contents of the sheepskin scroll. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have taken it out. If he knew that this was a visualization method that could actively condense spiritual awareness, I'm afraid he would regret it." Jiang Xi nodded. In any case, he had already guessed some of the methods of the spirit gathering realm. At this time, Xiantian asked again, "I heard from White Cloud that you are very interested in Li Bai's flying technique?" Jiang Xi was obviously stunned. "Did I say that?" But he reacted quickly. Even if he didn't say it, he must have said it. "Yes, Senior Li Bai's flying technique is very magical. Haha, I also asked for it for you. How about it, thank me?" "Thank you, Dojo Master." Forget it. You have no sense of humor, just like Hey Tuesday." Xiantian waved his hand and ridiculed. Jiang Xi's mouth twitched. Once again, he confirmed that this seemingly overbearing and tyrannical man was really a joker. Now that we have finished talking about the reward, it's time to talk about your next move, Xian Tian suddenly said seriously. With your current strength, you can be called the first person below the spirit-gathering realm, so I am going to appoint you as the 5th elder of the dojo. Are you going to stay in the headquarters, or go to the branch? The 5th elder. Jiang Xi was finally surprised in the division of power in Genten Budokan. The dojo master Xian Tian naturally had the most power. Next were the 2 guards, White Cloud and Hey Tuesday. Then came Tang He and the other 3 elders. The rest were the 12 deacons of the headquarters and the dojo masters of the 7 branches. These 2 had equal power. Originally, he thought that Xian Tian would arrange a deacon position for him, but he didn't expect him to be an elder directly. Jiang Xi didn't decline. At this time, of course he should take the benefits. Then he told Xian Tian frankly that he wanted to go back to Pak Sun province. Xian Tian obviously also expected Jiang Xi's choice. He smiled and said, "It just so happens that the situation in Pak Sun province is a little tense. When you go back, you can help them deal with some things." Jiang Xi nodded. When he went back, he would be the first person in Genten Budokan in Pak Sun province, above the dojo master Qing Yuan. However, the higher the position, the greater the responsibility. He could completely reject these responsibilities, but at the same time, Xian Tian would definitely take back most of the rewards just now. Xian Tian was very satisfied with Jiang Xi's attitude. He reminded him, "When you go back, you must thank He Changxing, the president of the Kitasanfa Martial Artists Association. Last year, after you shocked everyone in Pak Sun Province's Martial Science College entrance examination, many people secretly looked into your information. He Changxing was the one who covered up your information." Jiang Xi's expression froze. He said, "I'll remember that." So that was the case. No wonder so few people came to disturb him in the past year. Actually, Xian Tian also helped in this, but such a small matter was not worth mentioning. Xian Tian was also a person who cared about his reputation. Otherwise, He Changxing's influence alone would not be enough to wipe out Jiang Xi's information on the whole world. One more question. You killed Ma Yu, didn't you? That's right. Jiang Xi did not refute. Since Xian Tian asked this question, he must have investigated thoroughly. He's from the Ma family, a reclusive family in Chang'an. They have a lot of connections behind them. Although I've taken care of this for you, you must be careful not to tell anyone. Xian Tian's expression was solemn. He seemed to be quite wary of the Ma family. Jiang Xi nodded in agreement, but he was puzzled. Xian Tian was the strongest person in the martial arts world. Why would he be afraid of others? President, what's the origin of the reclusive family? It's complicated. Simply put, they're a legacy from the mythological era. They're very mysterious. After so many years, Li Bai Bai and I have secretly investigated a lot, but we've only found the tip of the iceberg. Jiang Xi fell silent. Xian Tian's short sentence contained a lot of information that even impacted his worldview. Chapter 149. Jiang Xi was silent for a while before he digested the shock in his heart. The mythological era? Are there really gods, demons, and monsters? There must be. If there isn't, how do you explain the undead creatures in the Jade Lake secret realm and the reflection of the Sky Lake? Also, how do you explain the projection of the Moon Palace and the palaces on the 2 moons? Xian Tian said with certainty. This world is very mysterious. Jiang Xi sighed. Haha, you don't have to worry too much. As long as your strength increases fast enough, you don't have to be afraid. With the current concentration of spiritual energy, even if you pry open the door of those cowards and dig up their graves, they won't come out. Jiang Xi's eyelids twitched when he heard this. He had a feeling that Xian Tian had done this before? Aren't you afraid that others will come out and settle accounts with you? In addition, I have to remind you of something. It's best not to use the 1,000-year-old lotus before you condense your spiritual sense. Can't use it? Yes, the ancients were particular about dual cultivation. It's not without reason. The spiritual energy of the 1,000-year-old spiritual item is very strong. If you don't suppress and refine it with your spiritual sense, it's easy to hurt your body's foundation. It'll be difficult to improve in the future. Jiang Xi nodded. He understood this principle. However, it didn't apply to him. Because he had the experience points panel. Whether it was 100-year-old or 1,000-year-old spiritual item, as long as he could digest the spiritual energy in time, there wouldn't be such a problem. After thinking about it, Jiang Xi quickly shook his head. It's better not to have such a terrible idea. Life is the most important thing. It's best not to take risks. Jiang Xi left Tianyuan Pavilion with a determined look. This world was indeed very mysterious. However, as Xian Tian said, as long as he improved his strength fast enough and became strong enough, there was no need to be afraid. Strength. He looked at the heavy alloy box in his hand. In addition to the 1,000-year-old lotus seed pod and the spirit nourishment cultivation technique that Xian Tian gave him, there was also a 100-year-old spiritual item and a spiritual weapon. Because according to the last contract that Genten Budokan signed with him, if he could pass the 8th step of Lingwan Road before January 1st, the 94th year of the new moon era, he would be able to obtain a 100-year spiritual item and a spiritual weapon. According to Xian Tian, Jiang Xi no longer needed to go through Lingwan Road to prove his strength. He could directly obtain this reward. However, Jiang Xi was very stubborn and insisted that he had to follow the contract. Therefore, in front of the Xian Tian, he climbed 2 steps and passed the 8th and 9th stages of Lingwan Road. Actually, the real reason was for the experience points. The 8th and 9th Mirage trial had given him 85,000 experience points. Back to Tianyuan District, Villa number 101. Jiang Xi entered the practice room full of expectations and sorted out the harvest this time. First of all, there was the spiritual weapon. It was a simple long sword that exuded a faint spiritual aura. According to Xian Tian, he got it from the hidden family of Shujia in Shushan Prefecture. Its quality was at least 10 times higher than an A-class alloy weapon. A full blow could even cut an A-class alloy weapon. During the Battle of Tongtian Mountain, the Dark Shadow Kingdom's Spirit Nourishment Realm martial artist attacked me and destroyed my A-class killing shadow sword with one blow. It seems that the weapon he used should also be a spiritual weapon. With this spiritual weapon, my strength has increased a bit. The killing shadow sword has accompanied me until now. From today onwards, you will also be called the killing shadow sword. Jiang Xi gently waved the sword. The sharp blade seemed to be able to cut through the air. It was extremely powerful. Next, he turned his gaze to the 3 USB drives. The contents stored in them were the Spirit Nourishment Realm Cultivation Technique, Li Bai's Flying Technique, and the Peacock Kingdom's Visualization Technique. Inserting the USB drive into the computer, he checked them one by one. After reading, Jiang Xi sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and understood the contents little by little. The sun rose and the moon set. It was not until the morning sun rose on the horizon that he completely digested the contents of the 3 techniques. Spiritual sense, spiritual power, so this is the spirit nourishment realm. Jiang Xi opened his eyes and exhaled softly. He already had a basic impression of the spirit nourishment realm. When a martial artist reaches the A-class bottleneck, he needs to cultivate the spirit nourishment realm cultivation technique. First, he needs to condense spiritual sense, and then with the help of the spiritual sense, he needs to refine spiritual power. After having both spiritual sense and spiritual power in the body, he is a real spirit nourishment realm martial artist. The normal cultivation process of a spirit nourishment realm martial artist is that the spiritual sense and spiritual power complement each other. The stronger the spiritual sense, the more spiritual power he can refine. After the spiritual power increases, it will in turn nourish the spiritual sense, making the spiritual sense more powerful. At the same time, in this process, the physical fitness will also be enhanced. Jiang Xi gradually sorted out his thoughts. The spirit nourishment realm martial artist of the Peacock country is really bleeding this time. The strengthening of spiritual sense, normally speaking, can only be passively nourished by spiritual power. The visualization method recorded in the sheepskin scroll can make people actively condense spiritual sense, which is very helpful for the cultivation of the spirit nourishment realm. Although he has not been exposed to the spirit nourishment realm cultivation technique, Jiangxi's intuition tells him that this visualization method is not simple. At dawn, Jiangxi tidied up a little and went out to participate in the farewell dinner prepared for him by the students of Pak Sun Province. The students of the heaven-level training camp are all elite geniuses of the prefectural cities, and they are well informed. They all vaguely know that Jiangxi is now powerful and has an amazing performance in the Jade Lake secret realm. Their elders, or the high level of their forces, have also reminded them that they must have a good relationship with Jiangxi. Therefore, during the dinner, Jiangxi received goodwill from all sides, and everyone was very enthusiastic. Of course, the news of Jiangxi becoming the fifth elder of Genten Budokan has not spread. If the news spread, then the atmosphere of this dinner will not be so relaxed and happy. Because the elder level Jiangxi, in terms of status, is already on the same level as the leaders of the major forces. After all, the elders of Genten Budokan are absolute figures with real power. The spirit nourishment realm martial artists of Genten Budokan usually do not care about the affairs. The ones who are really in charge are these few elders. After the bustle, Han Ningxue came to Jiangxi's side. She is now also an A-level martial artist, and will soon graduate and leave. Jiangxi, congratulations! Han Ningxue smiled. Thank you. Jiangxi smiled indifferently. It seems that Han Ningxue already knows that he has become the fifth elder. That's right, he is going home soon, and it is normal that Pak Sun Province receives the news in advance. There is something I want to ask. In the Jasper Lake secret realm, Mayu took my bell. I remember that you chased after Mayu at that time. The whereabouts of the bell, do you know? Han Ningxue asked. Jiangxi shook his head. I remember this matter, but the bell is not in my hands. Maybe it was lost in the Jasper Lake secret realm with Mayu. Han Ningxue frowned slightly, and chatted with Jiangxi for a while, then turned and left. Looking at her back, Jiangxi was thoughtful. He felt that Han Ningxue has changed a little. Maybe the experience of being attacked by Qin Feng and the others in the Jasper Lake secret realm made her grow up and become more rational. That bell should be very important, but during the conversation between the two, Han Ningxue deliberately weakened this feeling, as if she was worried that he would notice it. But in fact, Jiangxi has long been aware of the importance of the bell. That day in the Jasper Lake secret realm, after he killed Mayu, he also rummaged through his bag to look for it. Unfortunately, in the end, because of Feng Xian's sudden appearance, he did not have time to take it away. In addition, according to the death list announced in this survival experience, Mayu, Qin Feng, and Qiao Xing were all killed by undead creatures, and not even their bones were left behind. The real cause of their deaths was erased by Genten Budokan. The only thing that was true was that there were no bones left. Therefore, it is uncertain whether the bell was left in the Jasper Lake secret realm with Mayu in the end, or fell into the hands of Feng Xian. He could not tell Han Ningxue about this situation, because Xian Tian reminded him last night that he must not reveal the matter of killing Mayu. He must also treat a force that could make Xian Tian afraid seriously. Unfortunately, Feng Xian took advantage of the chaos that day to escape. Thinking of this, Jiangxi was vaguely worried, because Feng Xian knew that he killed Mayu. Chapter 150. Year 93 of the New Moon Era, 10th of September. The weather was clear and the northeast wind was strong. In front of three iconic buildings in Genten Budokan, Pak Sun Province, there was a square. At this time, the martial artists and members who came to the dojo for training saw a group of people in the square. They were anxiously waiting for something. What surprised them was that there were actually a few heavyweights among this group of people. The director of the Law Enforcement Bureau of Pak Sun Province, the dojo master of Genten Budokan, Qin Yuan. The captain of the first law enforcement team of Pak Sun Province, the deputy dojo master, Lu Shan. The captain of the C-level martial artist team, the Mad Dragon Squad, Wang Dalong. Wait a minute. These people were the top fighters in the martial arts world of Pak Sun Province. They seemed to be waiting for someone? Who is it? Who could make these people wait for them personally? It must be a top fighter in the martial arts world. Maybe it's an A-level martial artist from the headquarters. Everyone stopped to watch. There were many guesses. In the square, Qin Yuan and Lu Shan were the leaders. Jiang Daodu, Jiang Xing, Zhang Wei, Wang Dalong, and the members of the Mad Dragon Squad stood beside them. Didn't they say they would arrive in half an hour? It's already been 32 minutes. Jiang Daodu mumbled softly. She kept looking at the sky in the distance. With so many heavyweights around, she seemed to be more obedient. From Xiantian City to Pak Sun Province, the distance is close to 10,000 miles. It's across half of Xia. Although the headquarters transport plane is fast, it's still flying in the air. It's inevitable that it will encounter flying beasts on the way. It's normal for it to be delayed. Lu Shan explained with a smile. Won't it be dangerous? Jiang Daodu raised her voice. She was worried. Haha, let's not talk about whether the flying beasts can catch up with the headquarters transport plane. Even if they can, they're no match for Jiang Xi. So don't worry. Dojo Master Qin Yuan laughed. The others also laughed. Take Zhang Wei and Jiang Xing for example. Although they didn't say anything, their eyes were filled with excitement. They already knew that Jiang Xi had become an A-class martial artist and had graduated from the training camp. Among the people present, it could be said that aside from Jiang Daodu, the two of them had the closest relationship with Jiangxi. While everyone was focused on the distant sky, Qin Yuan whispered to Lu Shan. Old Lu, when Jiang Xi comes, you have to say a few words for me. Boss Qin, if you really want to pull strings, you'll have to go through Daodu and Jiangxing. Also, you'll have to call Elder Jiang. If you call him by his name, it'll be disrespectful. Lu Shan chuckled. Thank you for reminding me. I didn't pay attention to that. You should call him Elder Jiang. Qin Yuan nodded seriously. Lu Shan. Boss, you can't be serious, right? However, he understood Qin Yuan's complicated feelings right now. Originally, the person with the most power in each of the Genten Budokan branch libraries was the library master. But now, an elder with an even higher status had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This made people a little nervous. Who knew if there would be a seizure of power? Especially since Qin Yuan and Jiang Xi hadn't interacted much all this time. They only interacted once when Jiang Xi entered the heaven-level training camp. After that, there was no other interaction. This wasn't to say that Qin Yuan was arrogant, or anything like that. It was because before Jiang Xi entered the training camp, he was only a D-class martial artist with the reputation of being a genius. Compared to Qin Yuan, who was an A-class martial artist, he was far inferior in terms of status and strength. Therefore, it was normal that the two of them didn't interact much. But who would have thought that in just a few months, Jiang Xi had actually become an A-class martial artist? Some time ago, they had heard rumors that Jiang Xi had gone on a killing spree in a mysterious place and had killed nearly 10 A-class martial artists. Among them, there was even a second-tier A-class martial artist. In the beginning, the two of them had a skeptical attitude. But just yesterday morning, they received a message from the headquarters stating that the fifth elder, Jiang Xi, would be stationed in Pak Sun Province, and that they should be prepared to welcome him. This time, it was a match. Lu Shan still remembered that when he received the news yesterday, he and Qin Yuan were sitting there in shock for a long time before coming back to their senses. What a scary guy. It's only been a little more than a year. Lu Shan sighed in his heart. He still remembered that when he had signed the contract with Jiang Xi, Tsukishin Budokan and Longxiang Martial Arts School had come to fight over Jiang Xi. In just a little more than a year, Jiang Xi had become an A-class martial artist, and the kind that was close to the peak. He looked at Jiang Dudu, Zhang Wei, and Jiang Xing with envy. In terms of close relationship with Jiang Xi, no one could compare to Jiang Dudu, Zhang Wei, and Jiang Xing. It's here! At this time, Jiang Dudu pointed to the sky and cheered. A black dot appeared in the sky to the west. Soon, everyone saw it clearly. It was a black transport plane. It drew a streak of light, whistling as it approached at an extremely fast speed. In just 10 seconds, the transport plane landed on the square. Jiang Daodu was no longer able to maintain her composure as she ran over. Qin Yuan and Lu Shan looked at each other, then went up with everyone. The cabin door opened. Immediately after, a black-haired youth with a long sword on his back, wearing a black martial artist combat uniform, appeared in everyone's sight with a faint smile on his face. Who else could it be but Jiang Xi? "Everyone, long time no see." Jiang Xi smiled. Zhang Wei, Jiangxing, and the others were about to go up and greet him, but they did not expect that someone would be faster than them. Qin Yuan and Lu Shan took a step forward. "Genten Budokan, Pak Sun Province Branch Martial Arts School Principal Qin Yuan greets Elder Jiang Xi." Qin Yuan bowed respectfully to Jiang Xi. Beside him, Lu Shan stood there with an awkward expression. He was dragged over by Qin Yuan. At this moment, the scene was very quiet. Whether it was Zhang Wei, Jiangxing, or the original Mad Dragon squad led by Wang Dalong, they were all confused. What did they just see? Principal Qin Yuan and Jiang Xi were both A-class martial artists, but Qin Yuan was actually bowing to Jiang Xi. What was an elder? Qin Yuan and Lu Shan did not tell them that Jiang Xi had become the 5th elder. At this moment, Jiang Xi chuckled and said, "Uncle Qin, you don't have to do that. We're all family. Just call me by my name like before." Qin Yuan glared at Lu Shan, feeling betrayed. Then he laughed loudly. "Haha, that's how it should be, that's how it should be." Hearing Jiang Xi's words, most of the stone in his heart was put down. It seemed that Jiang Xi had no intention of competing with him for power. "Jiang Xi, we've prepared a welcome banquet for you. Shall we go now?" Lu Shan asked. "Uncle Lu, we don't have to be so polite, right?" Jiang Xi smiled and declined. At the same time, he glanced at Jiang Daodu. He knew that Jiang Daodu must have prepared something as well. "Brother, you haven't seen everyone for so long. It's a good time to get together." Jiang Daodu said something that surprised Jiang Xi. This made Jiang Xi look at Jiang Daodu a few more times. The little girl had grown up and learned to be considerate. In the past, she would not say such things and would only keep a straight face. Jiang Xi nodded slightly. Qin Yuan and Lu Shan looked at each other and sighed in relief. Jiang Xi's strength and identity were different from before. They had to treat him with caution. If they did not treat him well and angered Jiang Xi, they would not do it in the future. The group left the square under the gaze of many Genten Budokan martial artists and members. After they left, these people dared to talk loudly. Because Jiang Xi did not train in Genten Budokan for a long time, only a few martial artists and members had seen Jiang Xi, but they did not have a deep impression of him. So, everyone started another round of speculation. Who was this young man? He actually made the dojo master Qin Yuan bow to him. Chapter 151. At the welcome banquet, no one talked about anything else. They were mainly reminiscing. It started from the first time Jiang Xi came to Genten Budokan for training under Zhang Wei's guidance. Then, he trained under Jiangxing's guidance and took the Martial Science College entrance examination. After that, he joined the Berserk Dragon Squad and grew rapidly in the wilderness. Finally, he entered the Sky-level training camp and returned as an elder in less than a year. So many things happened in just a year and a half. Everyone sighed. Zhang Wei, Jiangxing, Wang Dalong, Zhou Yang, Tian Chenfeng, Lu Hao, Lu Shan, and Qin Yuan. Everyone present was a witness to Jiang Xi's growth. After eating and drinking, everyone went their separate ways. Qin Yuan was completely relieved. Because Jiang Xi said frankly at the end that he was focused on cultivation. The Genten Budokan of Pak Sun Province would remain the same as it was in the past. He could just pretend that he, the elder, did not exist. He showed that he had no intention of fighting for power. Also, before the banquet ended, Jiang Xi, Zhang Wei, and Jiangxing agreed to meet alone in a few days. It was obvious that with Qingyuan and Lu Shan around, everyone was a little hesitant. Besides them, Jiang Xi also made an appointment with the 4 original members of the Berserk Dragon Squad. They were all brothers who had fought together in the wilderness. They were true friends who had gone through life and death together. Especially Zhou Yang. When he was attacked by the Bloodthirst Squad, his right arm was broken, and his martial artist career was ruined. If it was in the past, Jiang Xi would not have cared about this kind of friendship because he was afraid of trouble. But now, he paid attention to this aspect. He did not want to be alone after he reached the peak. He did not want to be left with only people who flattered him and no real friends. Loneliness, emptiness, and coldness. Tongtian District Villa 92. Jiang Xi and Jiang Daoda returned home together. The familiar environment made Jiang Xi feel the warmth of home. When they were eating earlier, Qingyuan had even suggested that he move to the mansion in Tongtian District No. 1. Jiang Xi refused. Because the feeling of home was not determined by the size of the house. Even though Villa 92 was 2 to 3 times smaller than Villa 1, it was close to 1,000 square meters in size, which was more or less enough. Jiang Duda didn't say much at the welcoming banquet, but after she came back, she became a familiar scent to Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi, are you hiding something from me? Jiang Daoda asked with a straight face. In all honesty. Jiang Xi patted his chest and said, Hee, then why do Uncle Lu and Uncle Chen know that you've become an elder, but I don't? I just wanted to give you a surprise. I don't want surprises. I just want peace of mind. Jiang Duda's calm tone made Jiang Xi fall into silence. Just want peace of mind. These 4 words hammered Jiang Xi's heart heavily. He seemed to have done something wrong in this matter. He ignored Jiang Duda's feelings. Because of her early experience as a homeless child, Jiang Duda's mind seemed to be much more mature than her peers. But in fact, Jiang Duda was only 14 years old. She was just a little girl who lacked a sense of security. It had been more than 8 months since he went to the training camp. Jiang Duda lived alone in this empty villa. She went to school alone and ate alone. Some time ago, on the night of the 3rd awakening of spiritual aura, she heard a terrifying low chant, and her strength jumped to level C. Even if this kind of thing happened to an adult, they would feel terrified and uneasy. Not to mention a 14-year-old girl. If her mentality was slightly worse, she might have broken down long ago. Jiang Dudu, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened and lived alone for nearly a month. Right now, Jiang Daoda's questioning of him was very reasonable and didn't cause trouble for no reason. It was normal for her to be unreasonable. After all, she was a girl. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Jiang Xi admitted his mistake honestly. Then tell me, what did you do wrong? Jiang Duda sneered. Don't be unreasonable. Who's the unreasonable one? Since you admitted your mistake, you must have a guilty conscience. Maybe you're hooking up with the vixen outside. What the fuck, what a waste of my psychological speculation. In the end, Jiang Xi gave in. The price was to accompany Jiang Dudu to watch midnight horror movies for a month. For Jiang Xi, this was definitely the harshest punishment in history. Therefore, when Jiang Xi went to the Martial Artist Association to visit He Changxing the next day, he went out with dark circles under his eyes. This visit was something that had been confirmed before returning to Pak Sun Province. On the 99th floor of the Kitasanfa Martial Artists Association building, He Changxing's office. Jiang Xi met He Changxing for the second time. That's right. After all this time, he had only met He Changxing once. It was during the Martial Science College entrance examination last year. At that time, He Changxing had flashed from the stage to stand in front of him when he was tested with 100 points in martial arts talent. He said, "I'll remember you," which was similar to a declaration of vengeance. He shouted a few times and then stopped. However, through Xian Tian, Jiang Xi learned that this president of the Kitasanfa Martial Artists Association had done a lot for him behind the scenes. For example, when Feng Xian investigated him, He Changxing had covered up for him and did not find much information about him. Otherwise, he would not have made it to the sky-level training camp and would have been killed by Feng Xian. Therefore, Jiang Xi showed respect to this senior from the bottom of his heart. He had prepared a 100-year-old spirit item for this visit. Although Changxing tried his best to decline, he could not persuade Jiang Xi. After all, Jiang Xi was stronger, so he had no choice but to accept it in the end. Changxing had a square face and a wide mouth. He had a dignified face and was not a talkative person. However, he was very enthusiastic and happy to talk with Jiang Xi. Haha, I really didn't expect that the genius kid from last year's Martial Science College entrance examination would grow to such a height in just 1.5 years. He's bringing glory to the martial artists of Great Xia. Changxing sighed. As the president of a prefecture city's martial artists association, he was also a second-class martial artist. However, it was difficult for him to take out a 100-year-old spirit item as easily as Jiang Xi. It's all thanks to Uncle He's help that Jiang Xi can achieve what I have today. Jiang Xi regarded himself as a junior. There's no need to say such things. We Great Xia people value passing on the torch. Today, I'm helping you. In the future, you should help those who come after you. Never forget that you're a martial artist of Great Xia. Jiang Xi will remember this. After that, the two of them talked about cultivation and life as if they were old friends who had not seen each other for many years. Changxing also mentioned Jiang Dude. He told Jiang Xi not to neglect Jiang Dude's cultivation. After all, Jiang Dude's talent was shocking. She had the same talent as the world's second strongest person, Li Bai. Jiang Xi noted everything down. In the end, Changxing proposed to hold a celebratory banquet for Jiang Xi half a month later. He would invite people from all walks of life in Pak Sun province to attend. Jiang Xi thought about it and did not refuse. This was the care of an elder. Changxing did this to introduce him to these people and expand his social circle. Chapter 152. In an unknown barren mountain in the wilderness, there was an empty cave hidden inside. 12 virtual figures appeared in the cave. They were the 12 directors of the Liberal Alliance. They were scattered all over the world, and through this virtual projection, they held remote board meetings. In the past, the board meetings were mostly presided over by the white-clothed director, Sam. But today, Sam was very quiet. He still hadn't recovered from the loss 10 days ago. In the Battle of Sky Pass Mountain, he gained nothing and was even injured. Not only that, the Dark Shadow Kingdom suffered heavy losses in this battle. A Spirit Nurture martial artist was crippled, and 3 A-class martial artists were killed. Sam was a powerhouse of the Dark Shadow Kingdom, so he naturally felt pain by such losses. Of course, there was another reason why he remained silent today. Because today's board meeting was different from the past. This time, it was convened by the most mysterious founder. The Liberal Alliance had a total of 13 directors, among which the founder was the most mysterious. He had only appeared in the board meeting 3 times. Today was the 4th time. Everyone knew the purpose of this board meeting. It was because Feng Xian had obtained the bell that the Liberal Alliance had been looking for a long time. It was a key item related to the next step of the Liberal Alliance's plan. While everyone was waiting for the mysterious founder to arrive, one of the directors, whose face couldn't be seen clearly, asked Feng Xian. Feng Xian, can you reveal the process of how you obtained the bell? Oh? Mr. M is also interested in this? Feng Xian asked in reply. Among the 13 directors, except for the founder, only Mr. M's identity was still unclear. He was also a mysterious person. Mr. M, whose face was blurred, didn't speak. He just kept staring at Feng Xian. Feng Xian smiled and said, "The process was very simple. Not long after I entered the Jade Lake secret realm, I received a message from a spy. He said that he had obtained the bell, but was being hunted down. Coincidentally, the person who was chasing him was the murderer of my son, Jiang Xi." Speaking of this, he stopped. Mr. M quickly asked, "And then?" Feng Xian gave Mr. M a meaningful look and continued. "Then, when I arrived, the spy had already been killed by Jiang Xi. But Jiang Xi didn't have time to take the bell, so it was taken by me. Oh, in order to let everyone remember the spy who made great contributions to the Liberal Alliance, I'll tell everyone his name. His name is Ma Yu. As far as I know, he should be from the Ma family of the great Xia Kingdom's Chang'an Prefecture. As soon as he said this, everyone noticed that Mr. M's body trembled. Suddenly, there was a flash of light in the cave, and a virtual figure appeared in front of everyone. Greetings, Hermit Yuan Qing! The 12 directors hurriedly bowed. Yuan Qingshan's face was also blurry. What was different was that even though he was in the state of light and shadow, everyone could feel a bone-piercing chill from him. It was extremely gloomy and cold. He grunted softly and said, Feng Xian, take out the bell and let me take a look. Feng Xian nodded and waved his hand. The silhouette of a simple and unadorned bell appeared in front of him. That's right, this is it. After some time, send it to the same place. Yuan Qingshan's voice was also very cold and harsh. Then, he looked around. The only thing that could be seen on his blurry face was a pair of similarly cold eyes. Now that we have the bell, the next step of the plan is to prepare to open that arcane realm. As long as the plan succeeds, it's not impossible for our strength to surpass Xian Tian and Li Bai Bai. Therefore, before that arcane realm opens, I only have one request. Keep a low profile. I don't care what grudges you have with others. Even if it's a blood feud, you'd better let it go. Otherwise, don't blame me for personally killing him. When Yuan Qingshan said this, his cold gaze paused on Feng Xian and Mr. M. That bone-piercing coldness instantly enveloped the two of them. Even though they were separated by a holographic projection, Feng Xian could not help but shiver. He was different from the other directors. He had been in close contact with Yuan Qingshan before. Therefore, he knew Yuan Qingshan better than the others. In his opinion, Yuan Qingshan, Xian Tian, and Li Bai Bai should be powerhouses on the same level. If Xian Tian was a dragon and Li Bai Bai was a tiger, then Yuan Qingshan was a poisonous snake. Compared to the dragon and the tiger, who were open and above board, the poisonous snake was hidden in the dark. It was impossible to guard against it, and it was even more terrifying with the end of this meeting. The Liberal Alliance's secret forces began to operate. Although martial artists from all over the world were monitoring the Liberal Alliance, on the surface, the Liberal Alliance did not change much this time. Therefore, no one knew about the Liberal Alliance's actions. In the next few days, Jiang Xi was basically visiting friends and connecting with old friends. Then, he brought Jiang Dudu to visit his former neighbor, Old Jiang, in Luming District's apricot flower garden. Ever since Jiang Xi bought Old Yang's family a house in Sunshine Mansion, their family had completely turned over a new leaf. The family was doing well now. After visiting these friends, Jiang Xi cut off all contact and completely entered a state of cultivation. His current goal was to break through the current bottleneck and reach the spirit-gathering stage. In the underground training room of Villa No. 92 in Tongtian District, Jiang Xi sat cross-legged with his eyes slightly closed. He was not absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Instead, he was cultivating through visualization. Before reaching the spirit-gathering stage, martial artists would absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth through the qi drawing method. It would circulate throughout the body in the form of spiritual energy and strengthen the body. However, the spiritual energy could not be stored in the body for a long time. If it was not used in time, it would eventually dissipate and become the spiritual energy of heaven and earth again. Only after reaching the spirit-gathering stage can one truly refine the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and turn it into spiritual energy that can be stored in the body. Jiang Xi already knew the way to reach the spirit-gathering stage. But knowing and doing it are two different things. To become a spirit-gathering stage martial artist, one must first condense their spiritual consciousness into spiritual consciousness. Only with spiritual consciousness can one refine the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into spiritual energy. Although Jiang Xi had been visiting friends these past few days, when he came back at night and finished watching a ghost movie with Jiang Daodu, he would always come to the training room to cultivate and tried to condense his first strand of spiritual sense. The spirit-gathering stage technique that Xian Tian gave him was called 5 Elements Kinship Deed, and he had studied it thoroughly. The opening of 5 Elements Kinship Deed talked about the method of condensing spiritual consciousness. However, Jiang Xi found that the so-called condensing spiritual consciousness was actually a visualization process. It was similar to the visualization method that the expert of Peacock Country contributed. It was worth mentioning that in order to thank the selfless contribution of the expert of Peacock Country, Jiang Xi named this visualization method Peacock Visualization. In comparison, the visualization method in the opening of 5 Elements Kinship Deed was to observe things with one's heart. However, this visualization was only used to condense the first spiritual consciousness, and it was useless afterwards. On the other hand, Peacock Visualization was to observe oneself with the heart. After condensing spiritual consciousness, one could continue to visualize and cultivate in the later stage, constantly condensing spiritual consciousness. In comparison, in terms of visualization, Peacock Visualization was of a higher level. Of course, it did not mean that 5 Elements Kinship Deed was bad, because the focus of 5 Elements Kinship Deed was to refine spiritual energy after reaching the spirit-gathering stage. However, Peacock Visualization could only be used to condense spiritual consciousness. Spiritual consciousness and spiritual energy were equally important to a spirit-gathering stage martial artist. Chapter 153. Visualization Cultivation. It sounded easy, but it wasn't easy to do. It didn't mean that just imagining things in one's mind was enough. According to the Xian Tian, warriors who were stuck at the bottleneck of rank A were basically stuck at the visualization stage. Only a very small number of people who were gifted by the heavens and had outstanding perception could successfully visualize and condense spiritual awareness. Object visualization is to choose an object and visualize it in one's mind. The more realistic it is, the higher the possibility of successfully condensing spiritual awareness. Self-visualization is to use one's own body as the object of visualization. However, due to the complexity of the human body, it is very difficult to visualize a realistic image. In line with the idea of practicing, Jiangxi chose the Peacock Visualization method, observing oneself. He had tried to visualize many times over the past few days, but he didn't succeed even once. At most, he could visualize a blurry human figure in his mind. Unfortunately, the experience panel is of no help to this kind of cultivation. He could only rely on himself to break through this bottleneck. As long as he broke through the bottleneck, he could use the panel to continue leveling up. In addition to practicing the Peacock Visualization, Jiang Xi was also practicing Li Baibai's flight technique. This kind of flying technique was an application of speed. It was similar to the quick sword rhythm that Yu Lin had taught him. It could only be considered a technique, not a martial technique. Therefore, the experience panel couldn't record it. To master this technique, there was no other way but to practice. Practicing the flight technique required a certain environment. In Pak Sun Province, it definitely couldn't be done. Therefore, Jiang Xi would go to the wilderness outside the city every day, find a ruined city, and practice there. Ruin 0723. There were many tall buildings that hadn't collapsed yet. Jiang Xi ran between these tall buildings at top speed. Within the ruins, terrifying sonic booms kept ringing out. Then, Jiang Xi turned into a blur and rushed to the top of a tall building. He stomped down hard and soared into the air. Crash! This tall building that hadn't collapsed for 100 years turned into a pile of ruins in the blink of an eye. As for Riverward, he borrowed this force to continuously step in the air. However, after a dozen steps, he lost the strength to continue. He fell rapidly. Bang! Jiang Xi's entire body smashed into the ground, leaving behind a large crater. Of course, nothing happened to him at all. He patted the dust off his body and continued the process. Running at top speed, tearing down buildings with a single kick, stepping in the air, then, the ruined city met with disaster. After Jiang Xi cultivated for a day, not a single tall building could be seen in Ruin 0723. Furthermore, there were many large pits on the ground. As for the monsters in the ruins, they had long been scared away by Jiangxi's powerful aura. Those martial artists who came here to train even stayed far away, not daring to approach. Just like that, Jiangxi cultivated for a week. More than half of the ruined city near Pak Sun province had been destroyed by Jiangxi. Because of this, many warriors below D class complained that they could not find a place to hunt monsters. However, no one cared about their complaints, and no one dared to voice their opinions to Jiangxi. This was because many of the higher-ups in Pak Sun province's martial arts world had already acknowledged that Jiangxi was now the strongest person in Pak Sun province. From their point of view, Jiangxi wanted to cultivate and increase his strength. So what if he destroyed a few ruined cities? It would be best if he destroyed all the surrounding ruined cities and drove away all the monsters that were entrenched in them. In that case, he could take the opportunity to reclaim the land that was occupied by the monsters. Of course, Jiangxi did not return empty-handed after destroying so many cities. After a week of cultivation, he finally grasped the basics of using speed and the technique of flying. After that, he gained his own insights. Simply put, there is resistance in the air. Senior Li Bai's method is to use the air resistance to fly when one's speed reaches a certain level. Actually, the wind shadow steps that I cultivate is more suitable for this technique of flying. This is because when I use the wind shadow steps, there will be wind. I can completely use this wind to fly. If that's the case, the world is full of spiritual energy. In the end, I can even control the spiritual energy. If that's the case, I might be able to fly in the air. The more Jiangxi thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. He seemed to have touched upon something deep. In fact, Jiangxi later realized that what he thought was right. However, for now, he had to master the technique of flying first. After he figured it out, the progress of his cultivation became faster. Jiangxi combined Li Bai's technique of flying with his own wind shadow steps. After practicing for another 3 days, he successfully increased the time he could walk in the air to 10 seconds. He had basically mastered the technique of flying and gained one more technique. This technique did not seem to be very useful. However, Jiangxi knew that when fighting with others, especially when their strength was similar, the more techniques he had, the more he could gain the upper hand. Compared to the rapid improvement of the technique of flying, his improvement in visualization was not great, but he also found a way to improve it. He adjusted the visualization steps, and no longer tried to visualize the whole person in one go. Instead, he visualized it in different parts, starting from the palm and then to the other parts of the body. Finally, he visualized the whole body. In this way, he visualized and cultivated for a period of time. That night, Jiangxi continued to visualize and cultivate in the practice room. Today was a critical moment of visualization. He sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and adjusted his breathing. His mind slowly fell into a state of emptiness. As he visualized, the right hand of the blurry figure in his mind gradually became clear. Skin, fingerprints, palm prints, fingernails, and so on appeared one by one. In the end, the entire right hand appeared in his mind. Finally, a part of the blurry figure was clearly visible. At the same time, Jiangxi felt that his spiritual consciousness had become stronger, his thoughts were smoother, and his spiritual sense was sharper. Success! Jiangxi was pleasantly surprised. This success proved that his method of adjusting the visualization steps was feasible. Just by completely visualizing the right hand, I feel that the strength of my right hand has nearly doubled. Jiangxi gently clenched his fist. He could feel that in addition to the strength of his body, there was also a very shallow spiritual pressure that permeated between his fingers. This was the initial condensation of spiritual consciousness, but the manifestation of spiritual consciousness, if he succeeded in condensing spiritual consciousness and refining spiritual power, how powerful would he be? Jiangxi was full of expectations. He looked at the time. It was already 6 o'clock in the morning. He was a little surprised that this cultivation actually took a full 6 hours. And he was in the middle of visualization and did not notice the passage of time at all. After successfully visualizing the first step, my whole body's spirit has become better. Even if I didn't sleep all night, I'm still full of energy. Riverward stretched lazily, got up, and prepared to head to the wilderness to practice his flight technique. But before he walked out of the underground practice room, he heard Jiang Daoda calling him. "Brother, someone is looking for you." Jiang Xi was puzzled. Who was it? A visit early in the morning? Chapter 154. Ever since Jiang Daoda had become a C-class martial artist, she had been practicing hard every day. She no longer lazed around in bed in the morning, and her schedule was the same as Jiang Xi's. She woke up at 6 in the morning and went to bed at 12 at night. When he heard Jiang Daoda calling him, Jiang Xi washed up briefly and rushed to the living room to meet the visitors. 2 of them were wearing military martial artist uniforms, which revealed their identities. "Major General Jiang Xi, do you still recognize me?" One of them, a strong man with a resolute face, laughed loudly. "Congratulations, Commander Zhao." Jiang Xi chuckled. The man was Zhao Yan, the deputy commander of the Northern Mountains Army. He was the one who had supervised his batch of prospective martial artists' combat assessment last year. After the assessment, Zhao Yan had invited him to join the Northern Mountains Army. The reason for his congratulations was very simple. It was because he could tell at a glance that Zhao Yan had been promoted from B class to A class. Jiang Xi had also learned in advance that Zhao Yan had been promoted and was now the commander of the Northern Mountains Army. "Haha, Major General Jiang Xi is really amazing." Zhao Yan laughed loudly. Then he suddenly said seriously, "I'm here for no other reason than to greet Major General Jiang Xi in advance. If the military encounters any difficulties in the future, I hope that Major General Jiang Xi can help us." Jiang Xi nodded and said, "Don't worry, Commander Zhao. I've promised Elder Huang before. As long as I can help, I'll do my best." A moment later, Zhao Yan left Jiang Xi's house with his deputy. On the way back, the deputy couldn't help but ask, "Commander, you and Major General Jiang Xi are both A-class martial artists. Is he worth your attention?" "Of course. The martial arts world is very deep. If I'm not wrong, he should have touched the threshold of the spirit gathering stage by now. That's the real peak of martial arts. I'm still far from him." Zhao Yan sighed. When he was talking to Jiang Xi just now, he noticed that there was a faint spiritual pressure on Jiang Xi's body. That was the characteristic of a Yunling stage martial artist. The deputy general was speechless. He had only heard that Jiang Xi was a genius A-class martial artist, but he did not know that Jiang Xi was actually so strong. Spirit nourishment stage. That was an existence that stood at the pinnacle of humanity. After the deputy general came back to his senses, he hurriedly asked, "Commander, you still want to scheme against such an expert? Aren't you afraid of offending him?" "How is this a scheme? I'm just going with the flow. If he really bears a grudge against me, then I, Zhao Yan, can only blame myself for being blind and misjudging him. However, I believe that Major General Jiang Xi is a hot-blooded man. Before I came here, Elder Huang told me about his achievements. He once killed many foreign A-class martial artists in a mysterious place," Zhao Yan said with a smile, his eyes filled with confidence. The deputy general became even more shocked. Clearly, this was the first time he had heard of Jiang Xi's glorious battle record. "All right, you just have to follow the arrangements made by me and the higher-ups. Now, we just have to wait for the show to begin," Dao Yan instructed seriously. New Moon Era, March, September 30th. Cloud Top Building, Pak Sun Province's most luxurious hotel. On this day, the security of the Cloud Top Building was raised to the highest level. Of course, the security today was just for show. This was because most of the guests today were powerful martial artists in Pak Sun Province. No one dared to cause trouble here. In the evening, important people from all walks of life in Pak Sun Province gathered here to celebrate the new 5th Elder of Genten Budokan. As the main character of the banquet, he had to be the last to appear. Others were already waiting here, especially those with lower status and strength who were the earliest to arrive. Wang Qi arrived in the afternoon. With his status as a D-class martial artist, he did not have the qualifications to attend this banquet. However, the deputy principal of Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo, Yan Gang, decided to bring him along. This was because Wang Qi and Jiang Xi were in the same batch of people who participated in the prospective martial artist combat assessment. Yan Gang wanted to use this relationship to build a relationship with Jiang Xi. Bullshit friendship. Wang Qi was in a bad mood. During last year's prospective martial artist combat assessment, he treated Jiang Xi as a competitor. In the end, his results were better than Jiang Xi's. However, he did not expect that Jiang Xi would progress faster and faster, leaving him in the dust. Now that Jiang Xi was already an A-class martial artist, even the deputy principal of Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo had to do his best to befriend him. In fact, if he did not compare himself to Jiang Xi, his talent would definitely be top-notch for being able to become a D-class martial artist in a year and a half. However, what people liked to do the most was to compare. Wang Qi followed behind Yan Gang. When Yan Gang chatted with other people at the banquet, Wang Qi would reveal a bright smile and hide his displeasure well. He received a lot of praise. Everyone said that he would definitely become an A-class martial artist in 10 years. This kind of praise made Wang Qi even more displeased. 10 years? Who the hell wants to wait 10 years? Soon, Wang Qi saw a young man who was about the same age as him. As the saying goes, people of the same nature appreciate each other. The two of them looked at each other. Bosom friends. He and the young man could feel the displeasure and unwillingness in each other's hearts. However, what made Wang Qi puzzled was that he could not see through the young man's strength. Could it be that the young man was stronger than him? Thus, Wang Qi became even more displeased. At this time, Yan Gang was talking to the young man's elder. Congratulations, patriarch of the Han family. Your son's talent is comparable to Elder Jiang's. Yan Gang congratulated Han Chuan. The young man was Han Lei. The person who brought him here was his father, Han Chuan, the current patriarch of the Han family. The reason why Yan Gang congratulated him was because Han Lei's aura was that of an A-class martial artist. Han Lei had reached A-class in his early 20s. He was definitely a first-rate genius. Thank you for the compliment, Brother Yan. I don't dare to compare myself to Elder Jiang. Han Chuan shook his head and smiled. He felt helpless in his heart. He was the clearest about his own family matters. His two children, regardless of whether it was Han Lei or Han Ningxue, had taken advantage of the third awakening of spiritual energy to forcefully raise their strength to A-class using the vitality pills that had been passed down in the family. If not for Jiang Xi, perhaps this kind of increase could be flaunted. But now, a poor boy from an ordinary background, without any help, had grown to become a top-notch A-class martial artist in just a year and a half with his own talent. Comparing the two, Han Chuan was too embarrassed to flaunt his achievements. Han Lei's displeasure stemmed from this. A long time ago, he had looked down on Jiang Xi. Not only Jiang Xi, but he had also looked down on the strong martial artists in the outside world. However, he did not expect Jiang Xi to grow to such a height. Although he and Jiang Xi were both A-class martial artists, he was only a fourth-tier A-class martial artist. On the other hand, Jiang Xi was one of the top A-class martial artists. The fifth elder of Genten Budokan was in existence that one had to look up to. Just look at the banquet that was specially organized for Jiang Xi. The important people from all walks of life in Pak Sun province came with the intention of making friends, or even currying favor with them. When he had become an A-class martial artist, everyone had come to congratulate his father. Very few people had come to congratulate him. For the past half a month, every time Han Lei thought of this, he felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. Chapter 155. Yan Gang and Han Chuan chatted for a while before they left with their juniors. Xiao Wang, when Elder Jiang arrives later, you have to keep your eyes open and your mouth sweet when I talk to him. Remember to tell Elder Jiang about your combat assessment, okay? Yan Gang whispered to Wang Qi. Got it. Wang Qi squeezed out a smile. On the other side, Han Chuan looked around and said, Why isn't Ying Shui here yet? Your cousin said that Ying Shui likes Jiang Xi, and this is a good opportunity. She's the key to winning over Jiang Xi. Hurry up and tell her. Han Lei's cousin was naturally Shu Qiqi. Is there a need to do this? Han Lei frowned. Han Chuan smiled bitterly. Do you think I want to do this? However, the ancestors of the upper echelons miscalculated and thought that they didn't need to care about these martial artists. However, they only recently discovered that the geniuses who rose after the spiritual Qi awakening were all born with luck. Xian Tian, Li Bai Bai, and now Jiang Xi are all existences that can't be ignored. It's impossible to win people like Xian Tian and Li Bai Bai over, but Jiang Xi has just grown up. There's still a chance to win him over. This way, we can continue to have the upper hand in the future. Seeing that Han Lei was still silent, Han Chuan smiled helplessly. I'm not trying to harm Ying Shui. Doesn't she like Jiang Xi? They're both single, and I didn't mistreat her. Han Lei sighed. He understood what his father was saying. In fact, he just couldn't put down his pride. After a while, Han Yingshui arrived. She was dressed simply and neatly. Unlike the other young ladies at the banquet, all of them were dressed to the nines. Why are you dressed like this? Didn't I get someone to prepare a dress for you? Han Chuan was confused. I'm not used to it. Han Yingshui shook her head. I gave you a chance, but you didn't even fight for it. Han Chuan sighed. Dad, you don't have to worry about this. Don't listen to my cousin's nonsense. It's nothing. Han Yingshui smiled faintly. Han Chuan let out a long sigh. At this time, someone shouted from the entrance of the banquet hall. Elder Jiang Xi is here. Everyone's gazes turned in that direction. He saw Jiang Xi, who was wearing a warrior's combat uniform, holding a young girl's hand as they walked in through the door. Behind them were Qingyuan, Lu Shan, and other Gent and Budokan warriors. He Changxing, the organizer of this banquet and the president of the Warrior Association, went up to greet them. Uncle He. Jiang Xi nodded and saluted. Jiang Dudu did the same. Haha, you, the main character, are finally here. Let's start the banquet. He Changxing laughed. Jiang Xi nodded. The celebration banquet officially began. The banquet hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Under He Changxing's lead, Jiang Xi went to meet the important people of Pak Sun Province. During this process, Jiang Xi held Jiang Duda's hand and Jiang Duda was unusually quiet, like a lady. The two of them followed He Changxing and arrived in front of the Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo's vice principal, Yan Gang. Yan Gang gave Wang Qi a look. Then, with a smile on his face, he was about to greet them. At this time, He Changxing frowned and asked Yan Gang, Little Yan, where's your principal? Yan Gang was stunned and his expression changed. He looked around the large banquet hall but didn't see his principal. He thought to himself, oh no! The three major martial arts dojos in the Xia Empire, Jenten Budokan, Tsukishin Budokan, and Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo, each had a branch in each of the 7 major prefectures. Under normal circumstances, the Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo was ranked 3rd among the 3 major martial arts dojo's branches. But in the past 10 years, the Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo was ranked 2nd in Pak Sun Province, even surpassing the Jenten Budokan's branch by a head. The one who affected this balance was the principal of Pak Sun Province's Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo, Zhang Mengbei. Zhang Mengbei was a famous genius martial artist in the Xia Empire. His strength was tyrannical, and he was known as the most promising martial artist to reach the spirit nurture stage. Under his leadership, the Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo's branch in Pak Sun Province was ranked 2nd. Their overall strength was very close to that of Jenten Budokan's branch in Pak Sun Province. If it wasn't for Jenten Budokan's title as the world's number 1, perhaps Zhang Mengbei would have led the Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo in Pak Sun Province to the number 1 position. Yan Gang knew his principal very well. He was a very arrogant person who would never admit defeat. The celebration banquet had already started, but Zhang Mengbei still hadn't arrived. This kind of behavior was self-evident. It was a slap in the face to Jiang Xi and Zhenten Budokan. President our principal should be in the wilderness and didn't make it back in time. Yan Gang was a little embarrassed. I sent out the invitation letter half a month ago. How busy is he? He can't even spare a night? Is he looking down on me, He Changxing? He Changxing said coldly. Zhang Mengbei's behavior was not only a slap in the face to Jiang Xi, but also a slap in the face to him, the organizer of the banquet. He Changxing's words were also meant to protect Jiang Xi and shift the focus to him. Uncle He, maybe Principal Zhang really has something to do. Jiang Xi smiled. Humph. He Changxing snorted and left with Jiang Xi. Yan Gang's face was full of bitterness. He had been thinking about building a good relationship with Jiang Xi, but he had neglected the whereabouts of his principal. It was over. He had offended someone. Next to him, Wang Qi had mixed feelings. This was because Jiang Xi didn't even look at him just now. It was as if he was a stranger. This kind of attitude that bordered on contempt made him very angry. At the same time, he was secretly happy because his principal had slapped Jiang Xi's face. Not far away, the commander of the Northern Mountain Army, Zhao Yan, and his deputy general looked at each other. The deputy general said worriedly, Commander, Principal Zhang is not giving face to President He and Major General Jiang Xi. What we're going to do next will directly ruin this banquet. Won't that offend the two of them? Zhao Yan pondered and said, Now that things have come to this, we can't care so much. After the third spiritual Qi revival, the situation has become more and more tense. The longer we delay, the more dangerous it will be. Why don't we trigger this crisis in advance? It's not easy for the powerhouses of Pak Sun Province's martial arts world to gather together. It would be a pity if we don't take advantage of it. I hope Major General Jiang Xi and the others can understand. If they don't, then let them hate me. The deputy general nodded. He was full of admiration for Zhao Yan's choice. On the other side, He Changxing brought Jiang Xi to Han Chuan. He Changxing laughed and said, Patriarch Han, it's my honor that you took the time to come. I'm not doing this for your honor, old He. I'm doing this for Major General Jiang Xi's power. Han Chuan laughed while the two of them were talking. Jiang Xi smiled and nodded at Han Ningxue, who was standing behind Han Chuan. Han Ningxue also smiled and did not say anything. Jiang Xi, on the other hand, felt a little pain when he held Jiang Daoda's hand. Jiang Daoda pinched him. He Changxing then introduced him to Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi, this is Han Chuan, the patriarch of the Han family. You can call him Uncle. Hello, Uncle Han. Jiang Xi greeted him politely. Han Chuan smiled. Just as he was about to speak, there was a commotion at the entrance of the banquet hall, interrupting him. Ha ha ha, I'm not late, am I? A very arrogant laugh rang throughout the banquet hall, drowning out all other sounds. Many people frowned. It was a bald, middle-aged man. He was wearing a warrior's combat uniform and had two large bronze hammers hanging from his waist. He walked in from outside the door. He did not restrain his aura. Instead, he let his powerful aura spread out without any restraint. Many of the weaker females turned pale because of this. Chapter 156. Jiang Xi frowned. He was displeased by this rude behavior. Uncle He, is he Zhang Mengbei? Yes. He's really powerful. Jiang Xi nodded gently. He felt a layer of spiritual pressure from Zhang Mengbei, which was a sign that his spiritual sense was about to condense. Moreover, Zhang Mengbei's spiritual pressure was much stronger than the one he condensed 2 days ago. From this point of comparison, Zhang Mengbei seemed to have reached the spirit vessel stage earlier than him. Haha, where's Jiang Xi? Where is he? Let me meet the young genius of Pak Sun Province. Zhang Mengbei strode into the banquet hall. His tone directly put Jiang Xi in the position of a junior. Jiang Xi's brows relaxed. He smiled and stepped forward. He was now the highest-ranking person in the Genten Budokan in Pak Sun Province. Zhang Mingbei's move was not just a slap in the face. He also wanted to use him to suppress the Genten Budokan in Pak Sun Province. At this time, he couldn't think about keeping a low profile. Just do it, what's there to be afraid of? Zhang Mingbei, you're so powerful! But someone was one step ahead of him. He came in front of Zhang Mingbei and snorted. It was Han Chuan. He was just talking with Jiang Xi, but was interrupted by Zhang Mingbei. In this case, Han Chuan was also angry. Of course, his actions also had the intention of getting closer to Jiang Xi. Zhang Mingbei's face changed slightly. He restrained his smile and said in a deep voice, "What do you mean by that?" "What do I mean? May I ask, when did Headmaster Zhang learn to bully the weak? When did I bully the weak? Look at the women here." In the banquet hall, many of the weaker women turned pale because of Zhang Mingbei's aura and spiritual pressure. Zhang Mingbei's face darkened. He obediently withdrew his aura and spiritual pressure. This action made Jiang Xi look at Han Chuan a few more times. Han Chuan was only a third-tier class martial artist, but he was able to make Zhang Mingbei, who was about to reach the spirit-nurturing stage, obey him with just a few simple words. Was this the power of the hidden families? He recalled Xian Tian's warning before he left the heaven-level training camp, telling him to be careful of the hidden families. Jiang Xi was even more curious about the hidden families. When the atmosphere turned cold, Jiang Xi smiled and said, "Hall Master Zhang, right? I'm Jiang Xi. I heard that you want to know me? But I'm very sorry, I'm chatting with Uncle Han right now. I think we should get to know each other next time." Jiang Xi's words were neither servile nor overbearing. He used Han Chuan's name to make Zhang Mingbei speechless. "Haha, I'll leave you to it then." Zhang Mingbei laughed dryly and turned to Yan Gang. As soon as he turned around, his smile disappeared. It wasn't because he was humiliated in front of Han Chuan and Jiang Xi. This scene was nothing. In his mind, martial artists who cared about their face were not good martial artists. The main reason was that he also felt a faint spiritual pressure from Riverwood's body. This was the most shocking thing. Zhang Mingbei learned from the intelligence that Jiang Xi had reached A class last month. How long had he been cultivating? Now, his spiritual consciousness had begun to condense. However, he was only shocked. It was impossible for him to admit defeat to Jiang Xi. There's still a long way to go. Let's see who reaches the spirit-nurturing stage first. After Zhang Mingbei left, Jiang Xi and Han Chuan continued to chat. The atmosphere was very harmonious. The two were like old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. They chatted happily. This scene made Han Lei and Han Yingshu a little confused. He Changxing smiled and shook his head. He had already experienced Jiang Xi's ability to chat with ease. This kid was not only talented in martial arts, but his communication skills were also far better than his peers. Today's celebration banquet was because of Zhang Mingbei's accident. So far, everything had been going smoothly. Everyone was chatting in small groups. The atmosphere was very warm. Everyone came here to make friends with Jiang Xi. On the other hand, they could use this occasion to get to know each other better. After all, they were usually very busy and rarely had the chance to gather together. Halfway through the banquet, He Changxing walked to the stage and coughed a few times to signal everyone to be quiet. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. He Changxing was the president of Kitasanfa Martial Artists Association. Putting aside his strength, in terms of status, he was the real leader of the martial arts world in Pak Sun Province. Everyone paid close attention to his every move. He Changxing smiled and said, "Today, I brought a new friend to everyone. You've all met him just now. Now let me introduce him to everyone. He was born in poverty, but he never gave up on his pursuit of martial arts. He made a name for himself in the college entrance examination and became the first person in history to get full marks in martial arts. During the invasion, he fought with all his might and killed 8 A-class martial artists in one battle. He's the star of tonight's banquet, Jiang Xi. Please give him a round of applause." Clap, clap, clap. The banquet hall was instantly filled with enthusiastic applause. Jiang Xi walked to the stage with a smile. He was very calm. After the applause died down, he smiled and said, "First of all, I'd like to thank President He for organizing this banquet. I'd also like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedules to attend this banquet. To be honest, without everyone's support, Jiang Xi wouldn't be where he is today." "Why do you say that?" "That's because every expert starts off as a weakling. After the Spirit Qi revival, monsters were everywhere, and humans were trapped in various cities. I'm sure I don't need to tell you about the dangers of the wilderness. Without a peaceful environment, it would be very difficult for a weak, ordinary person to improve their strength step by step by relying on their talent. A peaceful environment is created by everyone's hard work. Therefore, all of us should be grateful for this peace and stability. At the same time, no matter who it is, after becoming a powerhouse, they should use their own hands to protect this peace and stability. Thank you, everyone." Clap, clap, clap. The banquet hall was filled with enthusiastic applause again. Everyone's impression of Jiang Xi went up another level. "What a beautiful speech!" The person who was most surprised was Zhao Yan, the commander of the Northern Mountain Army. Because of Jiang Xi's speech, the success rate of his next plan increased by at least 20%. On the other side, the three Han family members had different expressions. Han Chuan felt that it was a pity because just now, Han Yingxue had confessed to him that she was obsessed with martial arts and would not consider emotional issues. In fact, he also realized that his daughter seemed to have changed after returning from the heaven-level training camp. He did not know whether this change was good or bad. Han lay sighed silently. He let go of the last trace of superiority in his heart. He acknowledged Jiang Xi's excellence. Beside the two of them, Han Yingxue just looked at Jiang Xi indifferently. Her emotions did not change at all. She had indeed given up on emotional relationships. This change began when she swung her knife and cut Qi Yingfeng's throat. That experience woke her up from her fantasy and made her realize some of the reality. Compared to them, Zhang Mingbei's face was gloomy. He regarded Jiang Xi as a competitor. Naturally, he was unhappy that Jiang Xi was in the limelight. Jiang Xi did not know about the various reactions of the crowd, but he did not care. Because there was a premise behind what he had just said. Before protecting this peace and stability, he would protect Jiang Daodu and his own life first. Nothing was more important than this. However, these words could not be said out loud. Jiang Xi walked down from the stage and held Jiang Daodu's hand again. The two of them looked at each other and knew what the other was thinking. The atmosphere of the banquet became livelier because of Jiang Xi's speech. Near midnight, the situation suddenly changed. Chapter 157. What? Suddenly, someone spoke loudly in a grave tone. Everyone turned to look. It was Zhao Yan, the commander of the Northern Mountains Army. He was talking to someone with a serious expression. Jiang Xi and He Changxing realized that something big must have happened, so they walked over together. "Okay, I got it. I'll summon the military martial artists immediately." Zhao Yan hung up the phone. He said to Jiang Xi and He Changxing, "President He, Major General Jiang Xi, I'm really sorry, but I have to leave early. The commander of the Yi army just called. The monsters on Yi Mountain and Ruin 09 are rioting. The monster horde is gathering and attacking the Yi army. The situation is urgent. I have to go back and organize the Northern Mountains army to reinforce them." His voice was very loud, so many people heard him. Everyone's expression changed. Yi Mountain was the legendary place where the Yellow Emperor refined pills and became an immortal. In the eyes of ordinary martial artists, myths were mostly illusory. However, many powerhouses present knew that many magical things had happened there after the revival of Spirit Qi. It was an important strategic location in the martial arts world of Great Xia. The Yi army is responsible for guarding Yi Mountain. We can't afford to lose it. Since everyone is here today, let's go and reinforce them together," He Changxing said solemnly. Jiang Xi also nodded and agreed with He Changxing's suggestion. Moreover, he had the military rank of Major General. Under such circumstances, he had to go. "Thank you, everyone!" Zhao Yan thanked them solemnly. Then, he asked everyone to gather at the Northern Mountains Army's barracks outside the city. Because no one had brought their combat equipment to the banquet, they had to go back to get it first. "Commander Zhao, let's go there first," Jiang Xi said. He had come in combat equipment. When he said this, he felt Jiang Daoda's hand grab him tightly. Jiang Xi smiled and held her hand tightly to reassure her. "Count me in!" At this time, Zhang Mengbei also walked over. He was also fully armed. He and Jiang Xi were competitors, but they had the same attitude when dealing with foreign enemies and monsters. Zhao Yan did not waste time and immediately left with the two of them. With their departure, the banquet ended. The martial artists who were preparing to participate in the battle went back to retrieve their equipment as quickly as possible. As for the female family members, they were all worried about their families and wished them well. "Brother, you have to come back safely. Otherwise, even if I have to kill my way to the King of Hell's palace, I will find you and bring you back." Jiang Duda looked at their departing backs with an inexplicable expression in her eyes. Jiang Xi, Zhang Mengbei, and Zhao Yan were all A-class martial artists. With their strength and speed, they arrived at the Northern Mountains Army's barracks outside the city in just 2 to 3 minutes. At this time, the martial artists of the Northern Mountain Army had already assembled. Jiang Xi also boarded the transport plane with them. 10 transport aircrafts carrying nearly 10,000 military martial artists roared as they left. 15 minutes later, they were close to their destination. Roar! Wah wah! Before they even landed, everyone could already hear the roars of various beasts reverberating between heaven and earth. The 2 moons hung in the sky. Under the bright moonlight, the surroundings could be seen clearly. Further away, clouds and mist lingered, and a green mountain range loomed. It was the legendary Yi Mountain. All they could see were monsters roaring and pouncing toward the Jinni army's barracks. Not only on the ground, but also in the sky, there were huge bird-type monsters attacking the barracks. Boom! 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 The Jinni army opened fire with all their might. The huge barracks were like a large war machine armed to the teeth. Huge cannons were constantly firing with astonishing power. The martial artists of the army were scattered in all directions, fighting and killing the monsters that had pounced on them. "Quick, suppress those bird-type monsters from the air!" A valiant middle-aged female martial artist saw the Northern Mountains Army's transport plane and quickly commanded loudly to disperse the bird-type monsters so that the transport plane could land. She was Fan Yu, the commander of the Jinni army. She was a very famous A-class martial artist in the Xia kingdom. The Northern Mountains Army's transport plane successfully landed. Nearly 10,000 martial artists quickly joined the battle, providing support to the Jinni army and relieving the pressure. Zhao Yan briefly introduced Jiang Xi and Zhang Mengbei to Fan Yu. Fan Yu said to them, "Thank you for coming to support us. I won't stand on ceremony. The current situation is indeed not good. 2 A-class martial artists from the Jinni army are 30 kilometers away, blocking a few A-class monsters coming from ruin number 09. Please go and support us." The overall strength of the Jinni army was much stronger than that of the Northern Mountains army. It could be seen from their high-end strength that they had 3 A-class martial artists. "No problem." Jiang Xi nodded immediately. "Me too," Zhang Mengbei said in a deep voice. Then, the 2 of them leaped and rushed out of the barracks. Zhao Yan gave Fan Yu a look, nodded, and rushed out as well. 3 powerful figures landed in the middle of the monster horde with a boom. Jiang Xi used a sword. Zhao Yan used a knife. Zhang Mengbei used a hammer. The 3 of them attacked in the middle of the monster horde. Because of their attacks, a large part of the monster horde was suddenly emptied. However, they did not stay there and quickly ran 30 kilometers away. Compared to killing the weaker monsters, it was more important to stop the A-class monsters. With their speed, the distance of 30 kilometers was covered in an instant. Roar! Awoo! Hiss! In the wasteland between the Jinni army camp and ruin number 09, the earth trembled and cracks appeared. Under the moonlight, 5 huge A-class monsters were attacking 2 A-class martial artists. Through his training in the training camp, Riverward recognized the species of the 5 monsters at a glance. Two-headed demonic wolf, blood-eyed demonic ape, silver-striped fire python, cave flame dragon, and iron-armored mystic bull. The two-headed demonic wolf was the one he saw when he first came to ruin number 09. The monster roared and used its powerful body to attack the 2 A-class martial artists of the Genie army. The appearance of Jiang Xi and the other 2 changed the situation of the battle. "Haha, our men are here!" The 2 A-class martial artists were injured. Their breathing was unstable. At this moment, they regained some of their energy and strength. The situation was urgent, so the 3 of them did not talk nonsense. Jiang Xi shouted, "I'm fast. Leave the two-headed demonic wolf to me." Zhang Mengbei and Zhao Yan did not refuse and each faced a monster. The two-headed demonic wolf had 2 heads and was the strongest of the 5 monsters. It was also the most difficult to deal with. Jiang Xi specialized in speed, so he could deal with it. "Last time, you were the one chasing me. This time, it's the other way around." Jiang Xi looked at the two-headed demonic wolf expressionlessly. He stomped on the ground and dashed out, leaving a large hole in the ground. "Oh woo!" the two-headed demonic wolf roared. The intelligence of an A-class monster was not much different from a human. Its intelligent eyes were filled with anger. Obviously, it recognized Jiang Xi. It was this thief who had stolen the spirit item in its nest. Chapter 158. The two-headed demon wolf was furious. If that 100-year spiritual item was still there, it could take advantage of the 3rd spirit chi awakening to consume that 100-year spiritual item and reach the spirit vessel realm. A spirit vessel realm monster was the king of monsters. No, at that time, it would no longer be a monster, but a legendary demon. Ho! The two-headed demon wolf was unable to restrain its anger. It pounced over, wanting to tear Jiang Xi to shreds. Jiang Xi snorted and swung his killing shadow sword, causing a sword beam to appear. Last time, he had almost died in the mouth of the two-headed demon wolf. Now, he had to get back at it. Xiao! Jiang Xi used his body to lead the sword, using the wind shadow step to the extreme. With the speed of his movement technique, the long sword seemed to pierce through the air, bringing along a strong shockwave as it crossed 1,000 meters in an instant. Dang! The long sword and the two-headed demon wolf's sturdy claws collided, causing sparks to fly. Ho! At the same time, one of the two-headed demon wolf's huge heads opened its bloody mouth, biting towards Jiang Xi with its sharp fangs. Wishful thinking! Jiang Xi's heart was as calm as still water. With a light tap of his feet, his figure flickered as he dodged to the side. The great circle of Unity Realm wind shadow step was like the wind, perfectly dodging. Kill! Jiang Xi made full use of his agility, surrounding the two-headed demon wolf and continuously attacking. His fast sword was also displayed to the extreme. Chi-chi! The sharp blade brought along a sword beam as it continuously pierced into the two-headed demon wolf's body. Ho! The two-headed demon wolf angrily roared, but it couldn't do anything to Jiang Xi. The strength of both sides had long been reversed. Now, Jiang Xi had the absolute advantage. After attacking over 1,000 times, Jiang Xi coldly shouted, "Slash!" In an instant, he mobilized the mental pressure that he had just condensed a few days ago, and covered the sword. The power of the killing shadow sword, which was a spirit weapon, instantly increased by 50%. Seeing that the situation was not good, the two-headed demon wolf turned around to escape Hu. As if cutting through the air, the long sword fell with a strange speed. Suddenly, Jiang Xi caught up with the two-headed demon wolf. Voila! One of the two-headed demonic wolf's large head was directly chopped off by the long sword and the invisible sword aura on the sword. Fresh blood gushed out like a fountain from the wound. Oh whoa! The two-headed demonic wolf howled miserably. It didn't dare to stay any longer and frantically fled. Can you escape? Jiang Xi snorted lightly and sped up, turning into a series of afterimages as he caught up with the two-headed demonic wolf. Again! A sword slashed out. The other head also fell to the ground. You have killed a rank A two-headed demon wolf. EXP plus 110, rumble. The headless two-headed demon wolf's enormous body was like a small mountain. It continued to run wildly across the wasteland for a distance before crashing to the ground. It took him less than 3 minutes to kill the two-headed demonic wolf, which was one of the strongest A-class monsters in the world. Haha, good! Zhao Yan and the two A-ranked martial artists from the Genie army were both surprised and delighted. They were shocked by Jiangxi's strength, but at the same time, they were excited to have such a strong ally. Zhang Mengbei snorted and wildly waved his two large hammers, increasing the power of his attacks. His opponent was the blood-eyed demonic ape. My mental consciousness is clearly more condensed than his, so why is his combat power so much stronger? Zhang Mengbei wasn't convinced and wanted to quickly kill the blood-eyed demonic ape. Both sides were proficient in strength, but the blood-eyed demonic ape was also proficient in defense. It wasn't easy to kill it in a short period of time. On the other side, after Jiangxi killed the two-headed demonic wolf, his figure flashed and appeared in front of an A-ranked martial artist from the Genie army. This person had just been attacked by 5 monsters and was heavily injured. He was in the most dangerous situation. In front of him was an A-class armored mystic bull. Jiangxi's help relieved the pressure on him. He smiled gratefully at Jiangxi. Jiangxi lightly nodded and cooperated with him to kill the armored mystic bull. From the name, one could tell that this was a monster that was proficient in defense. It was very strong and difficult to kill it. It took a full 10 minutes for Jiangxi to stab his sword into its eye and shatter its brain. You killed an A-class armored mystic bull, experience points plus 110. Following the notification on the panel, the armored mystic bull fell to the ground. Zhao Yan and the rest were shocked again. Was this Jiangxi's strength? No wonder the Genten Budokan appointed Jiangxi as the 5th elder. With such strength, no one would object if he said that he was the strongest person below the spirit realm. Zhang Mengbei snorted again. He was a little anxious. Jiangxi had already killed 2 A-class monsters, but he hadn't even killed one. Was he going to admit defeat just like that? Impossible! Unlike Zhang Mengbei, Zhao Yan and the rest were very happy. Out of the 5 monsters, 2 had already been killed by Jiangxi. The remaining 3 weren't that difficult. Just when they thought that victory was in their hands, suddenly, a giant bird flew out from the depths of the clouds under the moonlight in the distance. It was as if it wanted to block out the moonlight. Its bare wings were more than 100 meters wide when they were spread out. Caw-caw! The giant bird let out an ear-piercing screech and flew toward the Genie army. It was extremely fast. In just 10 seconds, it had flown dozens of kilometers. Oh no! Zhao Yan exclaimed. In the direction the giant bird was flying, a Northern Mountain Army transport plane was streaking across the sky and rapidly approaching the Genie army. It was the martial artists who had just arrived from Pak Sun province. The giant bird was ferocious, and its aura was even stronger than the two-headed demonic wolf. Once it collided with the transport plane, the martial artists who had come to help would be in danger. I'll leave this to you. Jiangxi did not even think and chased in that direction. It's over! Zhao Yan's face was ashen. Both the giant bird and the transport plane were in the air. Jiangxi could not fly. No matter how strong he was, what was the use of him going there? These martial artists who had come to help were the elites of the martial arts world in Pak Sun province. If all of them died here, the North Mountains prefecture would suffer a huge blow, and they might not be able to recover from it. I'm going to be a sinner! Zhao Yan's heart was filled with bitterness. Ever since the third awakening of spiritual energy, the monsters in E Mountain and Ruin 09 had been restless for more than a month. There was a hidden danger. That was why he and Fan Yu, the commander of the Genie army, had planned to detonate the hidden danger and let the monsters attack in advance. They had wanted to use the opportunity when Jiangxi returned to Pak Sun province to gather the strength of the martial arts world in Pak Sun province. With the help of the Northern Mountain Army and the Genie Army, they could eliminate most of the monsters in one fell swoop. However, man proposes, God disposes. Who would have thought that such a huge A-class flying monster was hiding in the depths of E Mountain? Humans could not fly, but giant birds could fly. If they were of the same level, it was obvious that this giant bird had the upper hand. At the same time, Jiang Xi, who was sprinting on the ground, crossed nearly 5,000 meters with each step. He was as fast as lightning and caught up with the giant bird in the air. Rise! Suddenly, Jiang Xi shouted. Zhao Yan and the others were attracted to him. They saw Jiang Xi stomping on the ground. The explosive force caused the ground around him to sink nearly a meter. Jiang Xi used this force to leap into the air and reached a height of more than 1,000 meters. Then, they saw something that shocked them. Jiang Xi's footsteps created a strong wind as he sprinted in the air and quickly approached the giant bird. He was flying. When Zhao Yan, Zhang Mengbei, and the others saw this, they were shocked and then overjoyed. They were saved. Chapter 159. Jiang Xi's mood was not relaxed. Instead, it was very dignified. Because he could only walk in the air for 10 seconds, time was limited. As long as I can stop the giant bird and let the transport plane land. Jiang Xi was very calm and knew what he had to do. The transport plane had just decelerated and landed. At this time, it was impossible to pick up the speed again. If he didn't stop the giant bird, the transport plane would be torn apart by the giant bird in the air. On that transport plane, there were his friends and many other people he had just met at the dinner party. There was no room for failure. Jiang Xi stepped on the mysterious footwork of the wind shadow step. His speed was extremely fast, and a burst of wind circled under his feet. Using the wind to travel, his speed in the air was not much slower than on the ground. Quack! The giant bird found Jiang Xi chasing behind it, but it ignored him and continued to rush to the transport plane that was circling to escape. 3 seconds. Jiang Xi caught up with the giant bird. In the air, it was like walking on flat ground. With the help of the wind, he stabbed his sword. Whoosh! The giant bird's wide fleshy wings swept towards riverward. Jiang Xi was not afraid and increased the speed and strength of his sword. Whoosh! The sword shadow danced wildly, and hundreds of holes were instantly pierced on the giant bird's wing. Quack! The giant bird's voice changed. It was angry and suddenly stopped in the air and turned to pounce on Jiang Xi. The giant beak opened and made a sharp whistling sound, shaking the air, making people who heard it dizzy. There is also spiritual pressure. This giant bird is about to reach the spirit accumulation stage. Jiang Xi was shocked. The giant bird's realm was almost the same as his. I can't fight in the air, I can only fight. Jiang Xi's mind turned sharply, adjusting his fighting style, using speed and flexibility, constantly circling the giant bird. Quack! The giant bird screamed angrily, and its wings of more than 100 meters rolled up a gust of wind. However, it did not expect that these strong winds would provide sufficient wind power for Jiang Xi to fly through the air. With Jiang Xi's current ability to fly, he could only stay in the air for 10 seconds at most before falling down due to the lack of support. Now that there was sufficient wind power, Jiang Xi was naturally pleasantly surprised, and the fight became even more smooth. Wind shadow step, like the wind and shadow. With the wind, it was as if the heavens were helping. Ha ha! Jiang Xi laughed heartily. It was as if he could really fly in the air. His figure kept flashing in the sky. He had actually gained the upper hand in an instant. As for the transport plane, it had taken the opportunity to safely land in the Genie Army camp town. At this moment, everyone was shocked to see Jiang Xi running in the air like a mythical figure. This is Jiang Xi's strength? Zhang Mengbei looked at the unbelievable scene and felt a sense of powerlessness. He felt that he had chosen the wrong competitor. Both sides were not on the same level at all. When he was still running on the ground, Jiang Xi could already fly. Jie! Jie! The giant bird roared angrily, and the wind suddenly flashed. Its ferocity was monstrous. but it couldn't do anything to Jiangxiai. This was because Jiangxi's speed in the air was even faster and more agile than it. The slaughtering shadow sword, which was a spirit weapon, left wounds on its body. A large amount of blood sprinkled down from the sky like raindrops. Soon, the giant bird was afraid. It stirred up a gust of wind and wanted to fly away. It didn't dare to continue fighting. "You want to leave after showing off?" Jiangxiai snorted coldly and followed the wind created by the giant bird. He continuously stepped on the wind shadow step. Like a shadow. The giant bird couldn't escape. Poochie, Poochie, a large piece of the giant bird's huge wings was cut off by the spirit weapon killing shadow sword. Its speed was affected. If this continued, it would be killed by Jiangxiai in a moment. Roar! It let out a long cry and stretched its neck to roar. Its extremely penetrating voice spread for dozens of kilometers. A deathbed struggle! Jiangxiai was very calm. At most, he could kill this giant bird with 3 sword strikes. He was about to swing his sword. Suddenly, the world changed color. Dark clouds quickly gathered in the originally clear night sky. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Roar! A terrifying demon-like figure rose from the distant mountain. Its roar was like thunder, resounding through the world. Under the cover of the dark clouds, the terrifying figure couldn't be seen clearly. Accompanied by lightning and thunder, the dark clouds surged wildly. The figure soared into the sky as if it was roaming the world. In an instant, it flew above the Jinni army. Roar! A black breath similar to spirit energy shot out from the dark clouds and attacked Jiangxiai. Danger! Jiangxiai was shocked. He only felt a stabbing pain all over his body. His sharp spirit perception told him that this was a life and death crisis. If he was hit by this energy breath, he might be directly melted and not even his bones would be left. Jiangxiai didn't even think. He used the wind shadow step and turned to run. However, the speed of the energy breath was too fast. It was far faster than his speed. The terrifying figure hidden in the dark clouds gave him the feeling that it was second only to the tiger skeleton that Xian Tian killed in the battle of the Tongtian mountain. In other words, it had the strength to crush him. Damn it! Why can't I remember? Jiangxiai scolded himself in his heart. In fact, Jiangxiai couldn't be blamed. Who knew that such a terrifying existence was hidden in the depths of mountain? Dragon Python, how dare you! At the critical moment, there was a sudden roar. At the same time, a shocking saber's shadow slashed wildly from afar. In just an instant, it collided with the energy breath that was chasing Jiangxiai. Boom! The terrifying energy exploded in the air, setting off waves of air. Good chance! Jiangxiai used the force of the explosion to fly down and return to the ground. Then, he turned around and observed the sudden change. A young man with a cold face walked over from afar, covering 10,000 meters with each step. He exuded a powerful aura. He held a spiritual weapon in his hand and pointed at the dark clouds in the sky. Dragon Python, you violated the agreement, the young man said coldly. Boom! Thunder rumbled and the dark clouds quickly dissipated. On the ground, everyone was shocked. They saw a huge python with wings on its back and black scales on its body. It hovered in the air and looked down at the ground. What was even more shocking was that this python had a single horn on its head that shot towards the sky. The young man's words also revealed its identity: Dragon Python. A legendary creature. Roar! The dragon python roared at the young man. I don't care what you said. No matter who started this war, based on our agreement, no one above Class A, regardless of whether they're humans or monsters, is allowed to interfere in the war between humans and monsters. The cold young man did not back down. He could actually understand the dragon python's meaning. Roar! The dragon python roared again. You didn't look after your child. How can you blame us human warriors? Besides, your child isn't dead. The young man sneered. The dragon python's child? Jiangxiai glanced at the giant bird that was almost killed by him. It was in a sorry state with a large piece of its wings cut off. It looked somewhat similar to the dragon python. Bird? Dragon python? A cross-species transaction. Monsters were indeed powerful. Chapter 160. Roar! The young man's words enraged the dragon python. If you don't retreat, don't blame me for being rude! The young man shouted coldly. A layer of pure spiritual energy instantly covered his long saber. Roar! The dragon python roared at the sky. This roar was filled with anger and unwillingness. Even riverward could hear it. The dark clouds gathered again. The dragon python rolled up the dark clouds and flew towards E-Mountain with the scarred giant bird. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the mountains shrouded in clouds. As the dragon python and the giant bird retreated, the beast horde that was besieging the E-army also began to retreat. The scene of the beasts fleeing in a frenzy was spectacular. Monsters above Class C already had spirituality and were quite intelligent. They sensed great danger and wanted to escape. Humph! The young man waved his saber and slashed dozens of times. The shocking saber shadows landed in the midst of the beast horde and exploded. Tens of thousands of beasts were instantly blown to pieces. Roar! The dragon python's roar could be heard from the depths of E-Mountain. Humph! I'm just collecting some interest. The young man sheathed his saber elegantly. Fuck! Jiangxi was envious. If he had this skill, he could slash dozens of times and his experience points would skyrocket. Then, he became curious. Who was this young man? It seemed that his skills and strength were not much inferior to Xian Tian and Li Bai Bai. At this time, Zhao Yan and the others returned from the distant wilderness. In the end, Zhang Mengbei killed the blood-eyed demonic ape. The remaining two had escaped because of the unforeseen event. Greetings, Senior Qing! Zhao Yan, Zhang Mengbei, Fan Yu, He Changxing, Qingyuan, and a few other Class A martial artists who had rushed over from Pak Sun Province came over to salute the young man. You did well. The young man nodded lightly. Zhao Yan and the others were like primary school students who had been praised by their teacher. They were overjoyed and quickly said, Thank you for the praise, Senior Qin. Are you Jiangxi? The young man with the surname Qin turned his gaze towards Jiangxi. Jiangxi greets Senior Qin. Jiangxi also bowed respectfully. Are you willing to join my Qin clan? The young man surnamed Qin suddenly asked. Jiangxi was stunned. So direct? Senior, I have already joined Genten Budokan. It doesn't matter. I have a granddaughter who is about the same age as you. Her beauty is unparalleled in Shuntian Prefecture. I can marry her to you and let her join my Qin family through marriage. Xiantian won't say anything. Senior, that's not a good idea. A forcibly picked melon is not sweet. Whether the melon is sweet or not has nothing to do with how it was picked. What a reasonable explanation. Jiangxi remained silent, expressing his refusal. Humph! The young man with the surname Qin snorted and disappeared in a flash. Those A-rank martial artists all revealed looks of pity, feeling pity for Jiangxi's rejection. Jiangxi, your rejection was too direct. Senior Qin's granddaughter is... Sigh. Zhao Yan sighed. Who is Senior Qin? Jiangxi asked, puzzled. He Changxing smiled and explained. Senior Qin's name is Qin Qi. He comes from the Qin clan of Shuntian Prefecture. He is one of the top 10 martial artists in the world and is in charge of guarding E-Mountain. Jiangxi's expression was indifferent. Wasn't that Qin Feng Sr.? The Qin clan had such a domineering expert like Qin Qi. How could they have taught a junior like Qin Feng who had a mental problem? Everyone still felt pity for Jiangxi. However, when they saw that Jiangxi did not want to talk about this matter, they could only let it go and disperse. Jiangxi's shocking performance of easily killing the A-rank monster and flying in the air had shocked them no less than Qin Qi's. They did not dare to say anything to Jiangxi, afraid that they would make Jiangxi unhappy. Of course, Jiangxi was not so narrow-minded. He just did not like to decide a person's feelings with a few words. Moreover, he was very loyal to one woman. Jiang Xi, these are the monster materials from the two-headed demon wolf and the armored mystic bull. I brought them back for you. Zhao Yan did not leave. He handed a large backpack to Jiang Xi. Thank you, Commander Zhao. Jiang Xi smiled. This could be considered a bonus. The value of an A-rank monster's materials started from 10 billion. The two-headed demon wolf he had just killed was worth at least 50 billion new moon coins. However, to him, this was already considered a small amount of money. Any one of the few spiritual items he had obtained from Tongtian Mountain was worth thousands, or even trillions. A 1,000-year-old spiritual item could not be measured by its price. In Jiang Xi's opinion, money was secondary. The biggest gain from this support was that he had a deeper understanding of this world. Monster. Qin Shi had mentioned this word just now. This world is getting more and more interesting. Jiang Xi looked at Mount E. Then, Jiang Xi began to reflect. This time, he had really been a little reckless. If Qin Shi had not appeared in time, he would have been melted by that fatal energy breath. This world was very mysterious. It was hard to say where fatal dangers were hidden. Except this time, he recalled that he had fled in panic along the Xianan River when he had come to ruin number 09 last year. Downstream, he had almost been sucked into a terrifying whirlpool at the bottom of the river. Now that he thought about it, the existence in the whirlpool gave him a feeling that was very similar to the dragon python. Be careful! Be careful! Be more careful! Jiang Xi warned himself again and again in his heart. The crisis of the Genie army suddenly ended because of the appearance of Qin Shi and the dragon python. Originally, because of the third recovery of spiritual energy, the overall strength of the monsters in Mount E and Ruin number 09 had increased by a level, bringing a great crisis to the Xia kingdom and the Genie army. However, in this battle, they had suffered heavy losses. Especially the death of the two-headed demonic wolf, the armored mystic bull, and the blood-eyed demonic ape. The death of the three Class A monsters had caused their overall strength to decrease by a lot. The hidden crisis caused by the third awakening of spiritual qi was thus resolved. The warriors who had rushed over from Pak Sun province to provide support also embarked on their return journey. No matter what had happened this moonlit night, Jiang Xi's flight, Qin Chi's domineering attack, and the mysterious dragon python, was etched in everyone's mind. It was deeply engraved in everyone's minds. After this battle, no one doubted Jiang Xi's strength anymore. The fifth elder of Genten Budokan was indeed powerful. There were even more warriors and forces who wanted to befriend Jiang Xi. However, after returning to Pak Sun province, Jiang Xi cut off all contact and focused on cultivation. Even if these people wanted to befriend him, they could not find a way. His recent experiences made Riverward feel very anxious in his heart. This was because after the third recovery of spiritual energy, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth had increased greatly. In the future, there would definitely be more and more Spirit Yun stage warriors. He had to reach the Spirit Yun stage as soon as possible. Next, he put all his energy into the Genie technique and visualization cultivation. It was worth mentioning that Jiang Xi had a deeper understanding of the Genie technique in the battle with the giant bird in the air. Therefore, the improvement of the Genie technique was very fast. Chapter 161. After returning from E Mountain, Jiang Xi only took a week to increase the time he could fly from 10 seconds to 20 seconds. Then, it took another month to increase it to 25 seconds. 3 months later, at the end of the 93rd year of the new moon era, this time became 30 seconds. Although the increase was getting smaller and smaller, the time he could fly was getting longer and longer. In a battle between experts, the outcome could often be decided in 1 or 2 seconds. In 30 seconds, he could do a lot of things in the air. In the future, when he fought with others, whether it was to fight or escape, he would have room to choose. At the same time, the progress of visualization cultivation also made Jiang Xi quite satisfied. At first, he could only clearly visualize a palm. Now, he could visualize himself in his mind. Except for the head, which was still blurry, everything below the neck had become extremely clear. The changes brought by this kind of improvement were also very obvious. He was much stronger than he was 3 months ago. If he faced that giant bird again, Jiang Xi was confident that he could easily kill it. Because his spiritual consciousness was already extremely condensed, and he was only one step away from condensing spiritual consciousness. He even couldn't control the skyrocketing spiritual pressure. Because of this, Jiang Daoda had complained many times recently, saying that Jiang Xi was always suppressing her. New Moon Era 94, January 1st, the Spring Festival of the Xia Kingdom. At the beginning of the new spring, everything was renewed. Pak Sun Province was bustling with noise and excitement. Jiang Xi and Jiang Daoda wandered aimlessly in the city. From New Moon Era 92 to 94, their lives had undergone earth-shaking changes. In the past, when they lived in the so-called slum, Apricot Garden of Looming District, the two of them would definitely not come out at night. Because in this era, even in the city, it was not safe at night. Now, it didn't matter. Jiang Xi was only one step away from becoming a martial artist of the spirit accumulation stage, and was about to stand at the peak of human martial arts. Jiang Daoda was also a C-level martial artist. In terms of strength, she was definitely ranked in the top 1,000 in the martial arts world of Pak Sun Province. If there was anyone who dared to be presumptuous in front of them, they would definitely beat him up until his parents couldn't recognize him. The sun rose and the moon set. The two of them walked from midnight to dawn. It would be great if we could continue like this. Jiang Daoda raised her hand and looked at the dazzling morning sun on the horizon. What nonsense are you talking about? We can definitely go on forever. Jiang Xi rubbed her head. You said it. Pinky swear. Humph, a child's game. I am a child. A 15-year-old child. Although Jiang Xi said so, he stretched out his little finger and hooked it with Jiang Daoda's cold little finger. Pinky swear, 100 years, 10,000 years, no, never change. Jiang Daoda said with a smile. Never change. The two of them pressed their thumbs together. Laughter echoed through the streets. After returning to Villa number 92 in Tongtian District, Jiang Xi received a message. The sender and the content of the message surprised him. The sender was Xian Tian. The content of the message was, the entrance to the Heavenly Lake in the Jade Lake Secret Realm has been discovered. Get ready to meet at the headquarters on January 5th. Jiang Xi turned off the communication and fell into deep thought. This news was somewhat out of his expectations. Because when the Heavenly Lake in the Jade Lake Secret Realm was discovered, the A-level martial artists all tacitly agreed that this opportunity belonged to Xian Tian and other spirit-gathering stage martial artists. The A-level martial artists were not qualified to compete for it. Jiang Xi also thought so at that time. He didn't expect that Xian Tian would inform him. Did Xian Tian really discover that the Heavenly Lake has an inexplicable attraction to me? Jiang Xi shook his head gently again. It was useless to think too much. He just had to go. Moreover, he also wanted to find out what the inexplicable attraction was. Then, he told Jiang Daoda about it. Jiang Daoda surprisingly didn't have any big reaction. She just smiled and said, Then come back early. You promised me that you can't leave for so long again. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. Jiang Xi patted his chest and made a promise again. New Moon Era 94, January 5th. The weather was gloomy, and there was no wind. Jiang Xi carried a long sword on his back and was fully armed. He waved goodbye to Jiang Daoda and stepped on the transport plane. This transport plane was assigned to him by Genten Budokan when he became the fifth elder. It was a personal plane and had been parked in the square of Genten Budokan in Pak Sun Province. The black transport plane whistled into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jiang Daoda watched the transport plane leave. She looked at the empty sky for a long time before she turned around and went home. Then, she cultivated in the underground training room of Villa 92. When Jiang Xi returned from the training camp, he prepared a full set of high-level martial arts secret manuals for her. There was a method of drawing qi, offensive martial arts, and movement martial arts. In addition to these, there was also a B-level and A-level spirit medicine. These things were enough to support her cultivation until she reached A-level. On the other side, Jiangxi's transport plane arrived at the Genten Budokan headquarters in just over half an hour. Xian Tian and White Cloud were already waiting there. When the two saw Jiangxi, their eyes lit up and they looked a little surprised. They were both spirit nurture martial artists and had spiritual senses. They were still far away, but they could acutely sense the spiritual pressure emitted from Jiangxi's body. Jiangxi, have you succeeded in your visualization? Xian Tian asked directly. Only succeeded in my visualization. I'm still a little short of condensing my spiritual sense. Jiangxi nodded. A little short? I think you're just a step away. You're really abnormal. Back then, I had to visualize for 3 years to condense my spiritual sense. White Cloud shook her head. Maybe I'm just lucky. Jiangxi smiled. Looking at things or looking at yourself? Xian Tian suddenly asked. Jiangxi didn't hide and smiled. Looking at myself, I'm just short of my head. Haha, White Cloud is right. You're really abnormal. Xian Tian laughed. Jiangxi smiled helplessly. It felt like the two of them were scolding him. Then, the three of them took the transport plane again and set off for Kunlun's Death Valley. On the transport plane, Jiangxi asked the question in his heart. Chief, I haven't reached the spirit nurture stage yet. Am I qualified to go to the Sky Lake? Xian Tian and White Cloud looked at each other and smiled. Then, Xian Tian explained the reason. Do you still remember the origin of the Wind Shadow Step? Xian Tian asked. Wind Shadow Step? Of course, Jiangxi remembered. It was from last year. At that time, he had just signed a genius contract with Genten Budokan of Pak Sun Province. After he became a martial artist, he went to Xian Tian's store to buy secret manuals. First, he used the free quota to choose the 9 elemental sword technique. When he went to choose an advanced movement technique, he was dissuaded by the high numbers. Just as he was about to take a step back and choose the beginner and intermediate movement techniques, he didn't expect that the Xian Tian store would automatically pop up an advanced movement technique at a super low price. It was the Wind Shadow Step. Jiangxi clearly remembered that under the introduction of the technique, there was a reminder: a powerhouse obtained it from the ancient mystic realm. It was known as the most difficult technique to learn. So far, only 3 people have mastered it. The Wind Shadow Step came from the Jade Lake mystic realm? Jiangxi looked at Xian Tian in surprise. Chapter 162. That's right. When we discovered Lingwan Road and Wondrous Stone Mountain, there was actually a nameless ancient book placed on the 9th step of Lingwan Road. After I comprehended its contents, I named it Wind Shadow Steps. Later, when you were shopping for secret manuals in Xian Tian's store, I happened to be online, so I added Wind Shadow Steps to it. The price of 30 million is really cheap for you, Xian Tian said with a smile. Jiangxi was suddenly enlightened. The doubts hidden in his heart were finally solved. No wonder such a profound movement technique like Wind Shadow Steps was only sold for 30 million. Jiangxi also understood the reason why Xian Tian sold the secret manual to him at such a low price. It must be because of his perfect martial arts talent. Sure enough, Xian Tian said with a smile. I wrote in the reminder that only 3 people have entered the entry level. It's not an exaggeration. Before you, only Li Bai Hei too, and I have reached the entry level. But after that, it was very difficult to improve, so we gave up. In fact, I taught you Wind Shadow Steps just to try it out. I didn't expect your talent to be so abnormal. In just 1 year, you've practiced Wind Shadow Steps to perfection. Now you should understand why I brought you there, right? Xian Tian's eyes were meaningful. It was the same as the last time at the top of Mount Tongtian. Jiangxi nodded slightly. Mount Tongtian was the core of Jade Lake's secret realm. Lingwan Road was discovered at the top of Mount Tongtian, and Wind Shadow Steps was placed on the 9th step of Lingwan Road. In this case, the importance of Wind Shadow Steps was self-evident. After he mastered Wind Shadow Steps, he had an inexplicable connection with Jade Lake's secret realm. Now that he thought about it, there were actually signs before, except for the inexplicable attraction from the lake in the sky. When he went to Jade Lake's secret realm last time, the lightning at the lower half of Mount Tongtian was so dense, but strangely, it didn't fall on him. In addition, when he defeated Feng Xian, Sam, and the others at the top of the mountain to collect the remaining 3 spiritual items, he encountered the 5 skeletal undead creatures blocking his way. Just as he was about to attack, the 5 undead creatures strangely retreated. In these 2 scenes, he used the Wind Shadow Step with all his strength. Wind Shadow Step. Jade Lake's secret realm! Jiang Xi muttered to himself. Now that he knew the origin of the Wind Shadow Step, he was even more curious about the Jade Lake secret realm. After the transport plane landed at the edge of Death Valley, the 3 of them directly entered the Jade Lake secret realm through the mysterious teleportation power in the mist barrier. 15 minutes later, the 3 of them arrived at the peak of the Heavenly Mountain. After the lightning and fog disappeared last time, they never appeared again. Only the lake in the sky, which was 100 times larger than the lake at the top of the mountain, was still reflected in the sky. It was vast and boundless. The surface of the lake was filled with a thick mist, making it look like a celestial pond in the heavens. Within the mist, there seemed to be a lofty pavilion standing on the surface of the lake. Once again, he saw this fairyland-like scene. Jiang Xi was still shocked. At the same time, he had a question in his heart. In such a mythical place, not a single living creature could be seen. There were only skeletal undead. Where did the powerful existence that built this place go? Was it long gone with time? Or did it abandon this place? Jiang Xi shook his head gently. With his current strength, he was not qualified to pursue these questions. At this time, Li Bai, Huang Kun, and He Tu were already waiting by the lake. This time, only the 6 of them entered the lake in the sky. The entrance is in a stone cave at the bottom of the lake. There is a stone door made of the same material as Lingwan Road, Huang Kun said. This underwater exploration was done by the military. Then let's go down now and find out. Xian Tian laughed. Everyone also laughed. Their hearts were filled with anticipation as they jumped into the lake. With Huang Kun and He Tu leading the way, they swam in the water. With their strength, it would not be a problem for them to stay in the water for 3 days. Jiang Xi observed in the water. As expected, there were no living creatures at the bottom of the lake. It was dead silent. There was not even a single water plant. How could such an environment nurture those 1,000-year-old lotus seeds? The 6 of them moved quickly in the water. After a short while, they arrived at a dark underwater stone cave. Through the night vision device, they could see the environment inside clearly. Surprisingly, the cave was empty and dry. There was not a single drop of water. On the surrounding stone walls, they could vaguely see some vague carvings. In the deepest part, there was an ancient stone door. Above the stone door, there were 2 ancient words that clearly did not belong to this era. The structure of the ancient words was similar to the words on the stone tablet at the foot of Mt Tongtian. As if it was a message conveyed through their spiritual consciousness, the meaning of the 2 ancient words was understood by everyone. Jade Lake! Apart from Huang Kun and He Tu, they had already seen it. Jiang Xi and the rest were shocked. There was no need to guess anymore. The lake in the sky was the legendary Jade Lake. Xian Tian was the strongest. He took a step forward and pushed the stone door open. Inside the stone door, what entered their eyes was the dark green lake water. Miraculously, this stone door seemed to have a mysterious power that blocked the lake water outside. Not a single drop of water flowed into this stone cave. It was clearly separated. It was truly an uncanny workmanship. Everyone be careful! Xian Tian said solemnly, then took the lead and stepped into the dark green lake water. Indeed, they had to be careful. In the lake at the top of the mountain, there was a tiger skeleton that could reach the spirit vessel level through body transformation. What kind of danger could be hidden in the famous Jade Lake in front of him? Jiang Xi and the rest also followed Xian Tian and stepped into the Jade Lake. The Jade Lake's lake water was very warm, like a hot spring. It even emitted a faint floral fragrance. No one carefully felt the strange lake water. Instead, they followed the pre-agreement. After entering the Jade Lake, they immediately floated up and swam to the surface. Soon, as they continued to float up, everyone became more and more alarmed. Because the Jade Lake's lake water was also dead silent. There were no living things in it. And they had already floated up 1,000 meters, but they had not reached the surface yet. Suddenly, Jiangxi's expression changed drastically. He was horrified. The other 5 had the same expression. From the surrounding dark green lake water, crystal white skeletons emerged one after another. The appearance of these skeletons was similar to the tiger skeleton in the lake at the top of the mountain, but they were a size smaller. Correspondingly, their strength was also a level lower. But no matter how weak they were still at the spirit vessel level. And the tiger skeletons that appeared here were densely packed. They did not know how many of them there were. Danger! Everyone used their fastest movement technique. Jiangxi even used the wind shadow step to the extreme. Swim desperately. Upstream. The waves of the lake water became stronger and stronger. It began to roll, and a whirlpool swept over. Splash! Everyone swam up 1,000 meters again, and finally reached the surface. They broke out of the water. On the surface of the water, hazy fog flowed slowly, like a fairyland. One could vaguely see a pavilion hidden in the fog far away. But everyone did not have time to appreciate this beautiful scenery. They immediately stepped on the water and rushed toward the pavilion. Needless to say, that pavilion must be the core of the Jade Lake. Chapter 163. Roar! An earth-shattering tiger roar came from behind. Those tiger skeletons also came to the surface of the water and chased closely. Whoosh, 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 rays of white light shot out from their skeleton-like mouths and attacked the group. Clang, clang, clang! The 6 of them waved their hands to meet the attack and then continued to run wildly, not wanting to fight. Roar! A few larger tiger skeletons caught up to them and pounced on them. Get lost! Xian Tian shouted angrily, and his spiritual sense and spiritual energy condensed on the blade. Heaven and earth's spiritual energy gathered and instantly condensed into a 100-meter-long blade shadow. It did not stop. At the same time, a shocking blade intent rose from Xian Tian's body. The blade shadow expanded 10 times again, reaching 1,000 meters long. Boom! He slashed out. A dazzling light appeared, and a large number of tiger skeletons dissipated. Jiangxi and the others did not have time to exclaim. Because there was still an endless stream of tiger skeletons rushing out of the water. With a clear goal in mind, everyone rushed towards the lofty pavilion. They ran for hundreds of kilometers. They finally arrived in front of the pavilion. A golden plaque hung in the middle of the tall pavilion that pierced through the clouds. The plaque was also written with the same ancient words, Heaven-reaching tower. Heaven-reaching mountain, heaven-reaching tower. Could it be the sky palace above the jade pool? Jiangxi subconsciously looked up at the sky. The mist covered the sky and the scene above could not be seen. Go in quickly! Xian Tian's shout came. Behind him, the green water of the jade pool seemed to have turned into a sea of skeletons. The densely packed tiger tribe skeletons pounced over like a tidal wave. How many skeletons were hidden under the water? The door of the heaven-reaching tower was open, and the 6 of them flashed in. The next moment. Boom! Suddenly, the wind and clouds changed. The mist above the jade pools surged endlessly, and waves of black wind appeared from the void like a wind of destruction. The countless tiger tribe skeletons on the surface of the lake were blown away by the black wind and turned into ashes in an instant. And this majestic heaven-reaching tower was like a shelter. Neither the white bone undead nor the black wind of annihilation could get close to this place. Everyone stood in Heaven-span Pavilion, looking back at the apocalyptic scene. The shock in their hearts took a long time to calm down. Riverwood's heart thumped wildly, and he was also filled with lingering fear. It was too terrifying. If he was a step slower, he would be gone. white bones like a sea, black wind destroying the world. The black wind swept past and then disappeared without a trace. The jade-green water surface reappeared. It was as if those tiger tribe skeletons had never appeared. This doesn't feel like the legendary celestial pool, but more like a devil's pool. Huang Kun shook his head and sighed. In front of such an environment, everyone felt exceptionally small. Even if there really are immortals, they must have climbed up step by step from being weak. This is our era, we just need to charge forward. Xian Tian laughed with boundless heroism. That's right, this heaven-reaching pavilion has a profound meaning. Perhaps it's our fortunate encounter. Li Bai let out a confident smile. Jiang Xi, White Cloud, and He Tu didn't say anything, but their eyes were filled with determination. That's right, this was their era. Everyone turned around and observed the environment in Heavenspan Pavilion. The area was huge, but the scene in front of them was a little strange. Such a tall pavilion, but there were no stairs. There were only 6 dark passageways on the wall facing them. They couldn't see the inside of the passageways. It was as if it was specially prepared for them. The number of passageways was exactly the same as their number. There's a stone tablet over there. Jiang Xi had the habit of observing the environment whenever he arrived at a new place. The moment he entered, he carefully observed the place. He quickly saw a stone tablet erected in a corner far away. They hurriedly walked over. On the stone tablet, there were a few lines of ancient words. After taking a look, the ancient words conveyed the message to their consciousness. Each trial passageway is limited to 1 person at a time. Those who violate the rules die. Those who destroy the passageways die. Those who are not of the human race die. The 3 words, die, seemed to carry a mental attack, causing Jiang Xi and the rest to feel as if their minds were struck by lightning. They could feel the deterrence hidden in the ancient words. The 6 of them looked at each other and took a deep breath. After calming down, Xian Tian smiled and said, "Since the trial passageways were left behind by the ancestors of the human race, there must be generous rewards. Haha, I'll go in first." He walked straight to the first trial passageway on the far left. Those who practice martial arts should not fear danger. Li Bai chose the second trial passageway. Next, Huang Kun, White Cloud, and He Tu each chose a passageway and entered. Only Jiang Xi and the 6th trial passageway were left. He was the weakest, so he was the last to choose. Phew! I wonder if everyone's trial is the same. Jiang Xi thought to himself. Jiang Xi walked towards the 6th trial passageway. However, at this moment, he stopped in his tracks and looked at the 6 trial passageways in front of him in shock. He saw that the rightmost side of the 6 trial passageway suddenly changed, and the 7th trial passageway appeared out of thin air. This is... Jiang Xi's breathing stagnated, and then became rapid again. The inexplicable attraction that had been lingering in his heart became extremely intense at this moment. The attraction came from the 7th trial passageway. Calm down, calm down! Jiang Xi continued to take deep breaths, and when his emotions had truly calmed down, he walked towards the 7th trial passageway. The closer he got to the passageway, the stronger the inexplicable attraction became. Standing in front of the dark passageway, he could not see what was inside. Since he was already here, Jiang Xi did not hesitate and stepped in. After entering, he finally saw a glimmer of light coming from the end of the passageway. Facing the light, he walked forward. What Jiang Xi did not know was that the moment he stepped into the passageway, the 7th trial passageway disappeared without a trace from Tong Tian building, and only the original 6 trial passageways were left. In the darkness, as if he had walked for 10,000 meters, Jiang Xi finally approached the light. Then, his vision suddenly widened. A bright and boundless space appeared in front of Jiang Xi's eyes. Although Tong Tian building was majestic and spectacular, it was obviously impossible to fit such a large space. Needless to say, it was definitely another great magical technique. However, this was not what surprised Jiang Xi the most. His gaze was locked on a huge white jade stone staircase in front of him. The staircase was huge. This was a staircase made up of 9 huge stone staircases, and each staircase was nearly 30 meters high. It was incomparably magnificent, as if it was specially prepared for giants. The top of the staircase was covered by the light, and it was unknown where it led to. "Trial taker, please accept the inheritance trial." At this moment, a clear female voice sounded in this space. "Lingwan Road!" Jiang Xi's eyes widened in shock. This clear female voice was exactly the same as the prompt in Lingwan Road's illusory realm trial. He suddenly realized that if the staircase in front of him was reduced by 100 times, wouldn't it be Lingwan Road? The difference was that this larger update in front of him had no traces of erosion by time. Chapter 164. Could it be that this was also Lingwan Road? Jiang Xi suppressed the shock in his heart and tried to shout. "Excuse me, are there any requirements for the inheritance trial?" No response? At this moment, beside the large Lingwan Road, a white jade stone tablet appeared from the ground. The ancient words were also engraved on it. Jiang Xi quickly understood and his expression changed. It was even somewhat ugly. Because the inheritance trial's requirements were very deceptive. So this giant stone staircase is also Lingwan Road, but it belongs to the second section of Lingwan Road. On the second section of Lingwan Road, there is a set of cultivation technique manuals called the Wind God Escape. The Wind God Escape is divided into 9 levels and is hidden in the illusory realm trial of the 9 steps. After passing the illusory realm trial, the trial taker can obtain 1 level of the Wind God Escape. However, the Wind God Escape is not the true inheritance of the inheritance trial. The inheritance trial's requirement is for the trial taker to comprehend the true inheritance through the Wind God Escape. The more levels of the Wind God Escape obtained, the easier it is to comprehend. However, the stone tablet did not tell what the true inheritance was. This was not the most deceptive thing. What made Jiang Xi's heart sink was that the inheritance trial had a time limit. Within 10 years, if you don't comprehend the true inheritance, the final result is death. Jiang Xi surveyed his surroundings. The passageway he had just entered had already disappeared. In other words, he had to accept this inheritance trial. 10 years. Before he left this time, he had even promised Jiang Doubter that he would not leave for too long. Let's not talk about whether he could comprehend this inheritance first. Even if he could comprehend it, he would definitely need to spend a certain amount of time. Otherwise, this inheritance trial would not be limited to 10 years. If the worst-case scenario were to fail the trial and fail to comprehend the true inheritance, then only death would await him. Jiang Xi did not doubt the methods of the person who left behind the inheritance trial. The deterrence of the 3 words, death, on the stone tablet in Heavenly Tower was still imprinted in his mind. How long did the person who comprehended the inheritance the fastest take? Jiang Xi asked again. You can call me the Spirit of Illusion. Lingwan Road has been built for countless years. The fastest person to comprehend the inheritance only took 1 year and 3 days. Don't worry, during the inheritance period, I will provide you with a vitality-nurturing pill every day. I guarantee that you won't starve to death. This time, the clear and melodious female voice gave a response, and it even carried some emotion. Spirit of illusion? However, what Jiang Xi was concerned about was not whether he would starve to death. Even the person who comprehended it the fastest took a year. Jiang Xi's expression changed. In such a legendary place, there must have been countless geniuses born in the past. 1 year. Can I comprehend it in 1 year? If the head hall master and the others find that I haven't come out after their trial, they might think that I've died here. There's no way we can keep this a secret. Jiang Dudu will eventually get wind of this. No, I have to get out as soon as possible. Moreover, he had made quite a number of enemies since he embarked on the path of martial arts. If he was trapped here for a long time, some people might take revenge on the people around him. Jiang Xi was extremely anxious. However, he knew that there was no other way. He could only risk his life to pass the inheritance trial. At this time, he did not consider failure. He would not allow himself to fail. Now, he could not waste even a second. The first step is to obtain the Wind God Escape technique. Jiang Xi took a step forward and stepped onto the first stone step of the second section of Lingwan Road. He closed his eyes and his consciousness entered the illusory realm for the trial. The second section of Lingwan Road was slightly different from the first section. The illusory realm trial here did not have a limit on the number of times and time. He could keep trying until he passed. As long as he passed, he would be able to obtain the Wind God Escape technique. Trial taker, please kill 100 Wind Demon White Tigers. On the grassland of the illusory realm space, 100 ferocious A-class Wind Demon White Tigers appeared. Every one of them was equivalent to an A-class second-tier martial artist. Kill! Jiang Xi's killing intent was boiling. He instantly unleashed all his strength. Wind Shadow Step. 9 Elements Sword Technique. Accompanied by the earth-shattering roars of the tigers, a torrential storm of attacks was unleashed. Jiang Xi's figure flashed among the group of Wind Demon White Tigers. Kill, kill, kill! His speed completely crushed these Wind Fiend White Tigers. The first stage of the illusory realm trial was surprisingly simple. In less than an hour, he had killed all 100 Wind Demon White Tigers. Congratulations, you have passed the trial. You have obtained the first level of the Wind God Escape technique. The voice of the illusory realm spirit sounded again. The first level of the Wind God Escape technique. Where was it? Jiang Xi looked around. Just as he was puzzled, the 100 Wind Demon White Tiger corpses in front of him instantly transformed into streaks of white light and gathered around his body. A large amount of martial arts comprehension appeared in his mind and merged into his memory. It was very profound, as if he had already learned it, and was very familiar with it. No! This is obviously the Wind Shadow Step. In his mind, the comprehension of the first level of the Wind God Escape technique was slightly different from the Wind Shadow Step. The various combinations of footwork were almost exactly the same. Wind Shadow Step? First level of the Wind God Escape technique? You have comprehended the first level of the Wind God Escape technique. Experience points plus 2,000, the prompt of the experience panel suddenly sounded, which made Jiang Xi slightly surprised. Something different seemed to have appeared? Comprehension? He quickly opened the experience panel to check. Level, Pulse Opening Stage, A, 25900259000. Cultivation Technique, 9 Elements Heart Technique Martial Arts, 9 Elements Sword Technique, Combination, 300,030,000, Wind God Escape Technique, First Level, 400,005,000, Force Exertion, 10 Experience Points, 240585. As expected, the Wind Shadow Step has become the Wind God Escape Technique. No wonder. Jiang Xi finally confirmed that the inexplicable attraction that had been lingering in his mind was really caused by the Wind Shadow Step. When Xian Tian told him the origin of the Wind Shadow Step, he already had this guess. Now, he was completely sure that the Wind Shadow Step was not only an important item in the Sky Connecting Mountain, but also a part of the Legacy Trial. However, the first level of the Wind God Escape technique was not exactly the same as the Wind Shadow Step. There were still some differences. Looking at the experience points, he knew that to fully comprehend the first level of the Wind God Escape technique, he needed 50,000 experience points, which was 10,000 more than the Wind Shadow Step. Therefore, in the status bar of the Wind God Escape technique, he still needed 10,000 experience points to fully comprehend the first level. 10,000 experience points. According to my current daily increment of 250 experience points, I need 40 days to fully comprehend it. Just the first level required 40 days, and this was under the condition that he had already comprehended 80% of the Wind Shadow Step. If he did not comprehend the Wind Shadow Step in advance, he would need 200 days to fully comprehend the first level of the Wind God Escape technique. There were still 8 levels after that. How long would it take? Although Jiang Xi was anxious, he still maintained a sense of calmness. He exited the illusion trial. You have passed the trial of the 10th level of the Lingwan Road, experience points plus 50,000. This notification from the experience panel surprised Jiang Xi once again. The 10th level of the Lingwan Road? It seemed that the experience panel had assumed that the first and second levels of the Lingwan Road were continuous. Chapter 165. The first and second sections of Lingwan Road were continuous. Although it was surprising, it was not the main point of Jiang Xi's attention. Next, he sat cross-legged on the first step, wanting to comprehend the true inheritance through the first level of Wind God Escape. After a long time, Jiang Xi opened his eyes helplessly. Because he had gone through the first level of Wind God Escape in his mind over 100 times, but there was nothing. He did not even comprehend a single hair of the true inheritance. The more levels of Wind God Escape obtained, the easier it is to comprehend the true inheritance. Only the first level, the probability of comprehending the inheritance is very, very small. Jiang Xi shook his head, jumped up, and stepped on the second step, preparing to obtain the second level of Wind God Escape. In just half a day, he frowned and exited the illusion trial. The second step of the illusion trial was still the Wind Demon White Tiger, but the speed was faster. He tried for 6 to 7 hours, all of which failed. The speed is still a bit off. Looks like only by fully comprehending the first level of Wind God Escape will I have a chance to pass the second illusion trial. Jiang Xi's thoughts were clear. From the backpack behind him, he took out 100-year spirit fruit. When he went out this morning, for the sake of caution, he brought all the spirit fruits that he obtained from the Sky Span Mountain last time. 3,000-year spirit fruits, peach, dragon fruit, lotus seed 200-year spirit fruits, apricot, dragon mark spirit fruit. The spirit energy provided by 100-year spirit fruit is almost enough for me to consume 30,000 experience points. The last time at the Sky Span Mountain, he had consumed 100-year spirit fruit and had a rough estimate of the spirit energy contained in it. The first level of Wind God Escape is still 10,000 experience points away. It's too wasteful to use the spirit fruit now. Jiang Xi shook his head gently and kept the fruit. At this time, he noticed that on the huge white jade steps in front of him, a simple and unadorned small tray had appeared at some point in time. There was a small blue pill on it. Jiang Xi's face darkened. This was the essence augmenting pill. Although he was conflicted, he was hungry. There was no choice, he had to eat it. According to the spirit of the illusion, one essence augmenting pill a day would not be hungry. I wonder how it tastes? Jiang Xi picked up the soul nurturing pill and stuffed it into his mouth. The next moment, his eyes lit up. The taste was actually very good. Chicken flavor. However, before he had the time to savor it, a voice suddenly rang out. The soul-augmenting pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Almost instantly, it transformed into a dense spiritual energy that rapidly circulated throughout his body. What a surprise! He had originally thought that the soul-nurturing pill was used to allay his hunger. Unexpectedly, it actually contained a large amount of spiritual energy. This spirit chi energy is almost equivalent to a C-grade Fey potion. A C-grade Fey potion was priced at 2.8 billion new moon dollars in the Xiantian's shopping center. The spirit of the illusory realm was truly generous. After the pleasant surprise, Jiang Xi hurriedly used the experience panel to level up the first level of the Wind God Escape art. This was because two conditions had to be met in order to use the EXP panel to increase one's strength. Experience points and aura energy. Now, he had them all. Wind God's escape technique increased by 1,000 experience points. After upgrading once, the spiritual energy of the soul-augmenting pill was completely depleted. As expected, it was the amount of a C-grade Fey potion. This discovery allowed Jiang Xi to breathe a sigh of relief. One soul-augmenting pill a day could save him a lot of time. Just like that, 10 days later, he had successfully upgraded the first level of the Wind God Escape art to perfection. In terms of speed, it was 20% faster than when he was in the state of Wind Shadow art. The faster he was, the stronger he was. Then, he went to the second step of the second section of Lingwan Road, which was the 11th step of Lingwan Road. This time, he only tried 3 times and passed the illusory realm trial and obtained the second level of the Wind God escape art. You have comprehended the second level of the Wind God escape art. Experience points plus 3,000. You have passed the 11th step of Lingwan Road. Experience points plus 55,000. The experience panel sounded with a pleasant prompt. If it was a normal day, Jiang Xi would definitely be pleasantly surprised. But now, these gains did not bring him any surprise. Because next, he once again used the first 2 levels of the Wind God escape art to comprehend, but he still did not comprehend a trace of the so-called inheritance. There was no other way, he could only continue to work hard. He could not be trapped here forever. In case others mistakenly thought that he died here. If Jiang Daoda did something stupid because of this, then it would be too late for him to regret. Go, go, go! Jiang Xi used most of his time to comprehend the Wind God escape art, trying to comprehend the real inheritance. Then, he used the soul-augmenting pill every day to increase the experience of the Wind God escape art. After this level of the Wind God escape art was completed, he would go to the next illusory realm trial on Lingwan Road to obtain the next level of the Wind God escape art. The rest of the time, he used to visualize and cultivate. Level was the foundation. After breaking through to the spirit-nurturing realm and having spiritual sense, there might be a turning point, and he could comprehend the inheritance. Inside Tong Tian building, Xian Tian and the others stood in front of the trial passages. Although they had gained something in the trial, they did not have any happy mood at this moment. Because Jiang Xi had disappeared. It's been a month. Our trial will end in 7 days at most. Jiang Xi, he... White Cloud sighed and shook his head. He didn't finish his words, but the meaning was obvious. Among the 5 of them, Xian Tian took the longest time, a full 7 days. The second was Li Bai, who took 5 days. But they were spirit-nurturing realm martial artists. Relying on the spiritual power in their body, they could go 3 months without eating or drinking. As for level A martial artists, without any food, they would starve to death after a month at most. They had waited here for a whole month, but Jiang Xi had not come out of the 6th trial passage. Li Bai, Huang Kun, and He Tu, the 3 of them had a complicated expression. They were sad, and regretful. They all attached great importance to Jiang Xi's development, and had great hopes for Jiang Xi's future. Some time ago, when Xian Tian proposed to bring Jiang Xi in, they immediately agreed. But they did not expect that Jiang Xi would fall here. Obviously, there was no danger in the trial. You guys go back first. I'll wait here for another month. Xian Tian only said one sentence, then directly sat cross-legged facing the trial passage, closed his eyes, and cultivated. The others sighed and shook their heads as they left. They were important forces in the Xia country's martial arts world. Usually, they had their own missions and could not leave for a long time. Otherwise, other countries and forces would take advantage of the situation. As the white-boned spirits in the Jade Lake had already been annihilated by the Black Wind, they did not encounter any danger on their return journey. After Li Bai and the others left, Xian Tian opened his eyes. His expression was complicated as he looked at the 6th trial passage. It shouldn't be. I saw that your wind shadow step had reached perfection, so I brought you here. Although this trial will be difficult, it won't be life-threatening. Jiang Xi, what did you encounter? The wind shadow step is closely related to the Jade Lake secret realm. Even if we encounter danger, it won't be your turn. Chapter 166. The trials of the 5 of them were different, but none of them were too difficult. Xian Tian suddenly realized that the trial here was not dangerous for the spirit-gathering stage. But for the A-level martial artist, it may be fatal. He shook his head and waited alone for another month. However, there was still no movement. He didn't believe it. He didn't believe that with Jiang Xi's talent, he would fail here. So, he waited for another month. At the end of the 3rd month, Xian Tian sighed and gave up the last bit of persistence in his heart. 3 months without eating or drinking is already the limit of a spirit-gathering stage martial artist. Even with his strength, after meditating here for 3 months, his physical strength has been consumed by more than half. Xian Tian stood up with a wry smile. He didn't know how to tell Jiangxi's family about this. Jiangxi seems to only have one younger sister whom he relies on. He left Tong Tian Building, but that long sigh still echoed in Tong Tian Building. New Moon Year 94, April 15th. Pak Sun Province, Genten Budokan Tong Tian District, Villa 92. Genten Budokan Second Elder Tang He, Pak Sun Province Branch Master Qing Yuan, and Deputy Master Lu Shan. The 3 of them stood in front of the villa's door, hesitating for a while, with a difficult expression. "Sai, let me be the bad guy." Tang He stepped forward and pressed the doorbell. Soon, Jiang Daodu, wearing a training suit, ran out of the villa. After seeing them, she politely invited the 3 of them to the living room. In her view, since Jiang Xi is not at home, she must take on the responsibility of the head of the family. But she didn't expect that such a move would make Tang He and the other 2 feel like they are sitting on pins and needles. Jiang Daoda made tea for them and asked, "Uncle Chen, Uncle Lu, who is this senior?" Qin Yuan introduced. "This is Elder Tang from the dojo's headquarters." "Elder Tang from the headquarters?" Jiang Daoda's eyes lit up. Then, he hurriedly asked Tang He, "Elder Tang, do you know where my brother went? I asked Uncle Chen and Uncle Lu, but they didn't know." Tang He gritted his teeth and did not beat around the bush. His voice was heavy as he said, "Miss Jiang, I'm very sorry. According to the tavern master's confirmation, Elder Jiang Xi went missing in a mysterious place. There should be no hope for him to survive." Before he could finish his sentence, bang! Jiang Duda threw the teapot to the ground, and the broken glass flew everywhere. Her explosive aura was also very shocking. "Go! All of you, leave! My brother can't be dead. I won't allow you to curse my brother. Even if everyone in this world dies, my brother won't die," Jiang Duda said coldly. Tang He, Shen Yuan, and Lu Shan looked at each other and felt very awkward. They were all A-class warriors, but in front of a little girl like Jiang Dudu, they couldn't raise their temper. They left Jiang Xi's house in a somewhat embarrassing state. The 3 of them stood in the distance of the villa and sighed. Tang He pondered for a moment and said, "If I didn't feel wrong, the aura that Miss Jiang released should be the aura of a C-class warrior. You didn't notice it after so long?" Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I didn't have much contact with the siblings, so I didn't notice it." Lu Shan sighed. "I know them quite well. The feeling that the siblings give me is a bit strange. The 2 of them are like a whole, and it's very difficult for others to interfere in their lives. Moreover, Jiang Xi is cautious by nature and is very guarded against others. I think that he should be the one who asked Jiang Duda to hide her strength. That's why we didn't notice that Jiang Duda has actually reached C-class. She has only cultivated for less than a year, and such talent is second only to Jiang Xi." Tang He's expression became serious, and he reminded the 2 of them. "No matter what, Miss Jiang is Elder Jiang Xi's only relative. We must protect her. Although Elder Jiang Xi hasn't cultivated for long, he has killed many strong people. When he's alive, those enemies may not dare to make a move. However, if news of him getting into trouble spreads, then these people may have some evil thoughts and focus their hatred on Miss Jiang. Therefore, the matter of Elder Jiang Xi must not be spread. It's best to delay it until Jiang Dudu grows up and is able to deal with these dangers." Qin Yuan and Lu Shan both agreed with this point and nodded solemnly. However, they also understood that as the 5th elder of Genten Budokan, Jiang Xi was such a prominent figure. If he didn't appear for a long time, people would definitely suspect him. At that time, as long as they probed a little, they would be able to find out how Jiang Xi was doing. Sigh. The 3 of them sighed again. Jiang Duda stood in the living room of the villa in a daze and didn't move for a long time. After standing for a day and a night, she walked to the underground training room expressionlessly. She saw the area where Jiang Xi usually sat cross-legged. She walked over and curled up like a baby, wanting to feel the aura left behind by Jiang Xi. However, 3 months had already passed, and there was no trace of his aura left. Unknowingly, her tears had covered her small face as she muttered to herself, "Liar, you big liar!" Even though she was asleep, she kept repeating this sentence. Tongtian Building, Legacy Trial Space. 3 months had passed and Jiang Xi had already become a burly man with a curly beard. His hair and beard had become very long. He didn't have time to care about his appearance. After all, no one was looking. For such a long time, he had used all his energy to comprehend the wind god's teleportation and visualization cultivation. However, on this day, he didn't comprehend the wind god's teleportation. Instead, he was visualizing cultivation. After 3 months of hard work, his visualization cultivation had finally reached the final critical moment. His visualization cultivation process was to visualize himself, which was many times more difficult than visualizing objects. Because the human body was extremely complex, it was very difficult to visualize it completely in one's mind. Counting the time, it had already been more than half a year since he started visualizing. Now, he only needed a pair of eyes to be able to visualize his complete self in his mind. The eyes could be said to be the most difficult part of the visualization process. Because the eyes were agile and hid a lot of emotions, they could express many emotions. It was not like the nose and mouth, which could be as it should be. He had been stuck at the stage of the eyes for nearly 2 months. Today, he was finally about to break through. The transmission of emotions. Jiang Xi sat cross-legged on the huge stone steps, his mind in a state of emptiness. In his mind, his visualization image was already extremely realistic. Only his eyes were empty. Imagine your deepest emotions and express them through your eyes. He slowly visualized and guided. Gradually, the eyes of the visualization image began to appear in his mind. Deep affection, care, doting, protection, worry, all kinds of emotions were clearly expressed through his eyes. At this moment, he was thinking of Jiang Duda. Buzz. There seemed to be a soft sound in Jiang Xi's mind. The visualization of himself began to glow. Wisps of light gathered in his mind, condensed, and finally became solid. Spiritual consciousness appeared. Chapter 167. Boom! There seemed to be a big explosion in his mind, and the condensed spiritual sense suddenly shone brightly. Finally, it merged with the visualized image. The visualized version of himself seemed to have a life of its own. It was extremely agile. At the same time, Jiang Xi felt that his whole person had been sublimated. He felt that he was closer to this world, and he could clearly perceive the slowly flowing spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Refined spiritual energy! Jiang Xi grabbed a 100-year-old spiritual fruit that had already been prepared next to him and swallowed it directly. The rich spiritual energy quickly flowed throughout his body. His current physical fitness was completely able to withstand such a huge amount of energy. 5 Elements Meditation Deed, Refine! Jiang Xi ran the spirit gathering stage technique that he had already memorized and quickly refined the spiritual energy. In just a few breaths, the first spiritual energy appeared in his body. The experience value panel has been updated, please check it in time. A melodious voice rang out in his mind. Jiang Xi was very surprised and quickly opened the experience value panel. Cultivation, Spirit Gathering, Early Stage 152800, Cultivation Method, 5 Elements Meditation Deed, Peacock Visualization Martial Arts, 9 Elements Sword Art, Combination 300,003,000, Wind God Escape. Third level 300,006,000, Amplitude, 1 Deduction, 10,000 Experience Points per time. Experience Value, 319585, Amplitude, is Spiritual Energy Amplitude, 1 times Spiritual Energy Amplitude equals 10 times Force, Deduction, can deduce. New Martial Arts and Taoist Techniques according to existing martial arts and Taoist techniques. The success rate of deduction is determined by the grade and completeness of martial arts and Taoist techniques. The panel was very considerate to explain the new function for Jiang Xi. The force had changed, and it was updated to spiritual energy amplitude. The level had also changed, and it was updated to cultivation. Of course, these were not the main point. The main point was that he could finally use the experience value panel to improve his cultivation. Increase 3,000 cultivation experience points. Increase 3,000 cultivation experience points. In this way, after repeating 9 times, the spiritual energy in Jiangxi's body was quickly refined. At the same time, a total of 27,000 experience points were consumed. What he got in return was a powerful spiritual energy flowing through his body. The foundation of a spirit-gathering stage martial artist's strength, spiritual sense, spiritual energy. Now, he had everything. Cultivation base, spirit nurture, early stage 2700152800. Jiangxi carefully sensed the increase in his cultivation base and shook his head, giving up on the idea of increasing it further. I've raised my cultivation too much in one go, causing me to find it a little difficult to control my current cultivation. I can't raise my cultivation any further. He needed to stabilize his realm and polish it carefully before he could continue to improve. A stable foundation was truly stable. Now let's see if I can comprehend the true inheritance with my spiritual sense. Next, Jiangxi began to comprehend the first 3 levels of the Wind God Escape technique in his mind, trying to comprehend the inheritance mentioned by the spirit of illusion. Half a day later, the results were disappointing. Even after gaining spiritual awareness, he still didn't gain anything. Jiangxi opened his eyes and heaved a long sigh. He understood that the main reason should be that the Wind God Escape technique wasn't complete enough, lacking too much. In the past 3 months, he had passed the 10th, 11th, and 12th steps of the illusion trial of Lingwan Road and collected the first 3 levels of the Wind God Escape technique. According to the spirit of illusion, the more complete the Wind God Escape technique was, the higher the possibility of successfully comprehending the inheritance. But it's been 3 months. Jiangxi even felt some despair in his heart. This despair wasn't because he doubted whether he could comprehend the true inheritance. But he was worried that Jiang Duda would have an accident because of the news of his disappearance. In this world, the two of them depended on each other. After so many years, they couldn't leave each other. No, I can't despair. Jiangxi shook his head hard, and his expression became firm again. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. Right, deduction. He remembered that when the panel was updated, there was a new function, deduction. He opened the panel and sure enough, there was this item. Deduction, 10,000 experience points per time. There was another prompt below. You can deduce new martial arts techniques and Taoist techniques based on existing martial arts techniques and Taoist techniques. The success rate of deduction is determined by the level and completeness of the martial arts techniques and Taoist techniques. Jiangxi's eyes became brighter and brighter, and he instantly thought of something. The experience points panel mentioned Taoist techniques. The true inheritance. Could it be that I can deduce some kind of Taoist technique through the Wind God Escape technique? It was very possible. This inheritance trial was so grand. If the true inheritance was just a martial arts technique, it would be too low-end and not in line with the grand style of the Jade Lake Secret Realm. Then, Jiangxi began to try the deduction function and said in his heart, Deduction with Wind God Escape technique once! He seemed to have comprehended the first 3 levels of the Wind God Escape technique countless times in an instant. The next moment, the prompt of the experience points panel sounded frowny face deduction failed. Jiangxi didn't give up and repeated the deduction again. Deduction failed, deduction failed. After trying 3 times in a row, Jiangxi's face was a little gloomy. His heart ached because he had consumed 30,000 experience points in an instant. He looked at the experience points remaining frowny face experience points. 289585. Originally, he thought that after his experience points exceeded 100,000, he would be able to create as much as he wanted. Now, he found that these experience points were simply not enough. If he really wanted to deduce, these experience points wouldn't even last for 30 seconds. It's still the problem that Wind God Escape technique is not complete enough, so the deduction success rate is too low. continue to challenge Lingwan Road and obtain the follow-up Wind God escape technique. Jiang Xi understood what to do next. However, before that, he had to first upgrade the third level of Wind God escape technique to perfection and increase his speed again. Otherwise, the possibility of passing the next stage of the illusion trial was very small. Wind God escape technique, third level 300,006,0000. Next, he took another spiritual fruit. With the help of a large amount of spiritual energy, through the experience points panel, the third level of Wind God escape technique was raised to 57,000 experience points. He was only 3,000 points away from perfection. The rest was also simple. One energy-enhancing pill a day could help him increase 1,000 experience points. Just like that, 3 days later, the third level of Wind God escape technique reached perfection, and his speed increased by another 20%. Jiang Xi's strength was focused on speed. If his speed was fast, his sword would be faster, and his strength would be stronger. This time, he only tried twice in the illusion trial on the 13th step of Lingwan Road and successfully passed it, obtaining the 4th level of Wind God escape technique. Then, he used the first 4 levels of Wind God escape technique, and tried to deduce it again. However, after trying 3 times he still failed. Jiang Xi's face was dark, and he did not deduce anymore. Because in this inheritance space, the fastest way to obtain experience points was to challenge Lingwan Road. The problem was that the number of experience points obtained in each illusion trial on Lingwan Road was limited to 1 time. Therefore, the experience points could not be used carelessly anymore. It's best to get all 9 levels of Wind God escape technique before deducing. This way, the risk is the least. Jiang Xi thought about this decision with the most cautious attitude. Although he was anxious to go out, he told himself not to panic. Once he made a wrong decision, if he failed to successfully comprehend the true inheritance in the end, then it would be too late for regrets. Chapter 168. Jiang Xi had not appeared in front of the public for half a year. In the beginning, many people thought that he was cultivating in seclusion. However, as time went by, some people started to have doubts. Especially some martial art organizations with strong intelligence. Through some clues, such as whether some of Jiang Xi's friends behaved abnormally, they came to a conclusion. In the end, they concluded that Jiang Xi might have gone missing. Some people even guessed that Jiang Xi might have died somewhere. This was because Jiang Xi's sister had not smiled in the past half a year. Then, these guesses were spread by some people and quickly spread to the entire martial arts world. Some people became restless because of this. This was because Jiang Xi had killed too many A-class martial artists. Many veteran A-class martial artists had not killed more than a few opponents of the same level for decades. Jiang Xi, on the other hand, had killed 8 of them in the Battle of Mount Tongtian. Nordic City, located north of the Holy Alliance, was a large city independent of the 5 major countries. It was very famous in the new era. The organization of the forces here was very complicated. It was a place where exiled martial artists and vicious people yearned for. At this time, in a classical manner on a snowy mountain in Nordic City, Feng Xian stood in front of the window, overlooking the snowy mountain. He held a glass of red wine and sipped it in satisfaction. Such scenery, such a life. It's indeed leisurely. Compared to here, life in Mingxin Mountain is too depressing. I have to be careful all day and guard against the surveillance of the great Xia kingdom. He seemed to be talking to himself. The leader of the guards, old Yuan, stood respectfully behind him and did not say anything. Although the scenery here is good, I still miss Mingxin Mountain. After all, I'm from the great Xia kingdom. That's my home. Feng Xian's tone was complicated. Then, he gulped down the rest of the red wine. After sighing with emotion, he returned to his usual indifference and asked, "Has the news been spread? Almost all the major cities in the world know about it." Old Yuan replied. "What about the Ma family of Chang'an? According to your request, I sent the information to Ma Yu's mother." "That's good." Feng Xian nodded slightly, his eyes cold. "Regardless of whether you're dead or not, I can't do it myself. I can only use someone else to avenge my son. It wasn't that he couldn't. In fact, he didn't dare to. The difference in strength between him and Jiang Xi had been reversed. If they were to meet again, Feng Xian believed that he might not be able to withstand 3 strikes from Jiang Xi. Although it was rumored that Jiang Xi was dead, he still decided to hide behind the scenes for the sake of caution. In the Ma clan of the Chang'an Prefecture in the Great Xia Kingdom, the Ma family played a huge role in the fact that the Chang'an local government could stand firm despite being besieged by monsters during the first revival of Spirit Qi. As a hidden family with thousands of years of history, the Ma family's foundation was not to be underestimated. However, since they were reclusive families, they were naturally not well known. Only the higher-ups of the martial arts world knew of their existence. The head of the Ma family, Ma Jihai, was a very low-profile warrior. He had been the head of the family for more than 50 years, but he rarely appeared in public. The only thing that left a deep impression on people about Ma Jihai was that he had a son 24 years ago, when he was 100 years old. It was said that he had married more than 30 wives before he had this one son, who was very precious. He named his son Ma Yu, implying that he had a bright future. Ma Yu also lived up to expectations. When he was 20 years old, he relied on his own strength to enter the sky-level training camp opened by Genten Budokan. In the 3rd year of entering the training camp, he possessed Class A combat strength. Last year, during the 3rd revival of Spirit Qi, he became a Class A warrior in one fell swoop. With such talent, he was among the top of the younger generation of the reclusive families. Ma Jihai was proud of this. This was his only son, the hope of the Ma family's future. However, Ma Yu died in the Jade Pool's secret realm. After Ma Yu's death, Ma Jihai learned that Ma Yu had secretly joined the Liberal Alliance a long time ago without telling him. However, Ma Yu did not know that his father, Ma Jihai, was actually one of the people who established the Liberal Alliance. However, in order to hide his identity, Ma Jihai basically did not interfere with the operations of the Liberal Alliance. Little Yu, I know that you have great ambitions and want to control this force that is known to have the most warriors. But why didn't you tell me? If you wanted it, I could have given it to you directly. Ma Jihai stood in front of Ma Yu's grave. Although he was more than 100 years old, he still looked like a middle-aged man. His expression was sorrowful as he looked at Ma Yu's photo on the tombstone. There were only clothes in the grave, and Ma Yu's body was not there. This was because Genten Budokan's response was that there was no corpse left, and they did not give the cause of death. However, Ma Jihai was very clear about the real cause of Ma Yu's death. Previously, during the Liberal Alliance's council meeting, he had already learned from Feng Xian that Ma Yu was killed by Genten Budokan's 5th elder, Jiang Xi. What's the use of cultivating? What's the use of being number 1 in the world? I can't even avenge you with my own hands. Ma Jihai seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. After a while, calmness was restored. Wait, at most 1 more year. Once the plan is completed, I won't be afraid of the Xiantian anymore. Even if I don't have the chance to personally end Jiang Xi's life, I will still kill everyone around him. Ma Jihai's eyes were cold. Different from the news circulating outside, he had already confirmed that Jiang Xi was dead. He knew that Jiang Xi had entered the Jade Lake secret realm half a year ago, and had not come out yet. No one could live for more than half a year without eating or drinking. At the same time, at Ma Yu's mother's residence. Ma Yu's mother's name was Hu Jin, and she was Ma Jihai's 36th wife. When she was 20 years old, she married Ma Jihai, who was already 99 years old. Unexpectedly, she got pregnant in the 2nd year, so Ma Jihai did not have no children. Because of that, she became the matriarch of the Ma family. With the help of the Ma family's resources, she had also reached Class A. Hu Jin's face was gloomy as she browsed through an anonymous message. A lot of information appeared in the holographic projection in front of her. Little Yu. So Little Yu didn't die in an accident. He was killed by the Genten Budokan's Jiang Xi. Why didn't Jihai tell me this? Xiantian, it must be because of Xiantian. Jiang Xi is the fifth elder of Genten Budokan. Even if the Ma family has a deep foundation, they wouldn't dare to offend Xian Tian. Images flashed in the holographic projection. Finally, it stopped at an image of Jiang Xi holding Jiang Daoda's hand as they walked into the banquet hall. The time shown on the image was last year, when He Changxing held a celebratory banquet for Jiang Xi. Hu Jin looked at the image and saw Jiang Xi smiling confidently. Her expression gradually turned vicious. The person who sent me this message said that you might be dead. But how can a mere death appease the hatred in my heart? I want the people around you to live a life worse than death. The image flashed again. In the holographic projection, besides Jiang Xi, there was also information about the people who knew Jiang Xi. But I can't act rashly now. Let's wait. Although Hu Jin's heart was filled with hatred, she didn't act rashly. She hadn't been the matriarch of the Ma family for 25 years for nothing. Her vision and methods were extremely strong. As the fifth elder of Genten Budokan, Jiang Xi's death had just been announced. If someone were to make a move on the people around Jiang Xi, it was conceivable that the people of Genten Budokan wouldn't let it go. No one dared to ignore the deterrence of Xian Tian. So, they had to wait a little longer. They had to wait until fewer people were paying attention to this matter before making a move. Chapter 169. Jiang Xi had disappeared for more than a year. Jiang Xing was very concerned about Jiang Daodu. After all, he was her martial arts teacher and treated Jiang Daodu as his own child. Ever since the news of Jiang Xi's disappearance spread throughout the martial arts world, he would take time to visit Jiang Xi's house every day to check on Jiang Daodu. He was worried that the little girl would do something stupid because of this. Jiang Daodu did not like it at first. She hated it when people other than Jiang Xi cared about her. But she knew that this was the concern of an elder. Slowly, she got used to it. On this day, Jiang Daodu was practicing in the underground practice room. When the doorbell rang, she showed a helpless expression. She knew that Uncle Jiang was here again. When she opened the door, she found that it was not Jiang Xing but Jiang Wei. Where's Uncle Jiang? Uncle Jiang was seriously injured last night. He's in the hospital now. Jiang Wei's expression was a little ugly. Take me to see him. Jiang Daoda's expression turned cold. She closed the door and rushed to the hospital with Jiang Wei. She had grown a lot in this year and was less willful. On the way to the hospital, Jiang Wei drove. Jiang Daoda sat in the back and frowned. How did Uncle Jiang get injured? She felt that something was wrong. Jiang Xing was a D-class martial artist and a law enforcer. The possibility of him getting injured in Pak Sun province was very low. Uncle Jiang was leading a team on a mission last night when he was attacked. If he did not meet the deputy head of Sukishin Budokan, he might have died. Where's the attacker? He committed suicide. Suicide soldiers? The feeling that something was wrong in Jiang Daoda's heart grew stronger and stronger. Be careful! Suddenly, Jiang Daoda sensed a dangerous aura approaching at an extremely fast speed. Whoosh! A high explosive bomb that could kill a D-class martial artist came from a tall building in the distance and hit their car. Boom! Boom! There was a huge explosion on the street. The pedestrians panicked and screamed as they fled in all directions. A petite figure carrying a person jumped out from the explosion and landed on the side of the street, leaning against the wall. Stand behind me. Jiang Daodu shielded Jiang Wei behind her. Daodu, she is the same as Jiang Xi. She's also an expert. Jiang Wei cut a sorry figure. More than half of his hair was burnt. He was shocked and scared. If it wasn't for Jiang Daodu's timely palm strike to disperse the deadly shockwave caused by the explosion, he might have died. Jiang Daodu held a dagger in her hand and cautiously looked around at the panicking crowd. Suddenly, 3 cold lights shot out from the panicked crowd. With a speed close to the speed of sound, it arrived in front of them almost instantly. You're courting death! Jiang Daodu shouted coldly. The petite figure flickered in the narrow area. At the same time, he continuously brandished his dagger. Puff! Puff! 3 soft sounds were heard. The three C-class martial artists clutched their necks and fell to the ground with an expression of disbelief. In an instant, Jiang Daoda severed their necks. This was the strength of a top-notch C-class martial artist. "Daodu, be careful!" Jiang Wei exclaimed. He saw a pedestrian who was fleeing in a panic suddenly stab at them while they were facing the three attackers. The speed of the sword was so fast that it was impossible to guard against it. Jiang Daoda didn't even think and quickly dodged. Chi! The blade finally pierced through her left shoulder. It was only 2 or 3 centimeters away from her heart. Scram! Jiang Daoda was furious and swung her dagger. The head of the attacker flew into the sky. The battle came quickly and ended quickly. The police siren sounded and the law enforcement team arrived immediately. They quickly cleared the area and the panicked pedestrians were sent to other places. The danger was over. On this day, He Changxing, the president of Kitasanfu Martial Artists Association, and Qin Yuan, the president of Zhenten Budokan in Pak Sun Province, as well as the vice president, Liu Shan, were all furious. The Law Enforcement Bureau of Pak Sun Province was mobilized and investigated all the martial artists with criminal records in Pak Sun Province. Many criminals were caught because of this. For a time, the martial arts world in Pak Sun Province was in a state of panic. Xia country, Ma family of Chang'an. Ma Jihai looked at his 36th wife coldly. "Who told you to do this?" Hu Jin pretended to be confused. "I don't understand what you are talking about. Last night, the law enforcement team of Pak Sun Province was attacked. There were 2 men of sacrifice from the Ma family at the scene. This morning, there was an explosion in Pak Sun Province. There were 4 men of sacrifice from the Ma family at the scene." Ma Jinhai's face was gloomy. The men of sacrifice of the Ma family could only be mobilized by the family head. Hu Jin was silent for a while, then suddenly shouted, "Can I avenge Xiao Yu? If you don't do it, can I do it?" She was a little hysterical. "Stupid!" Ma Jihai did not want to talk to her anymore. He turned and left. After taking a few steps, he stopped and said coldly, "From today onwards, if I find out that you do it without permission again, your current treatment will be revoked." After saying that, he left without looking back. Hu Jin looked at his back and cursed him for being a coward. Then she turned her gaze in the direction of Pak Sun Province and sneered, "Count yourselves lucky. There won't be a chance like this next time." She did not take Ma Jinhai's words to heart. So what if she was treated as the matriarch of the Ma family? Hu Jin knew very well that with Ma Yu dead, she, as the matriarch of the Ma family, was just a decoration. In order to ensure the continuation of the Ma family, Ma Jihai married 3 more wives within this year. There would definitely be more in the future. New Moon Year 95, February 2nd. Sky Tower, Space of Inheritance. Jiang Xi sat cross-legged in front of Lingwan Road. His eyes were shining. "I have mastered all 9 levels of the Wind God's escape technique. I will definitely succeed this time." Then, he said in his heart, "Use the Wind God's escape technique to deduce once." Deduction failed, the experience bar notification sounded. At the same time, his experience bar decreased by 10,000 points. What the fuck? Jiang Xi's eyes twitched. He held back his anger. It was like he had finally gathered all 7 Dragon Balls. In the end, he was told that he had failed to summon the Dragon God. He had spent a whole year and a month here. He was going crazy from boredom. "Fine. I don't believe it. Use the Wind God's escape technique to deduce once." Deduction failed, 10 times in a row. It was as if he had been cheated for 10 consecutive draws. 100,000 experience bar was gone. Jiang Xi's face darkened. He looked at his experience bar. Experience bar, 182585, he could deduce another 18 times. Again. Use the Wind God's escape technique to deduce once. Deduction successful, you have comprehended the true meaning of Gale. Experience bar plus 100,000, the experience bar has been updated. Please check it in time, there were 3 consecutive notifications on the interface. Jiang Xi was stunned. He succeeded? The true meaning of gale? But before he could be surprised, his spiritual sense fell into emptiness. In a trance, his spiritual sense seemed to be connected to something, and the distance between heaven and earth was closer. Especially the wind. There was originally no wind in this space of inheritance. But at this time, wisps of breeze appeared around Jiangxi and kept circling. The breeze that was like the end of green duckweed gradually turned into a gale, then a gale, and it became faster and faster. The gale whistled. Chapter 170. In the Tongtian Building's inheritance space. When the wind blew, the top of the second section of Lingwan Road, which was built with white jade, emitted beams of colorful light. Finally, they converged into a faintly discernible figure of a lady. The lady was like a fairy from a painting. She wore a rainbow-colored feather dress and descended with the wind. She took light steps and walked in front of Jiangxi, who was comprehending the true intent of Gale. Then, she curiously observed Jiangxi's appearance. "You look so ordinary. Why did you suddenly comprehend it? Seems like you have quite a big secret." Suddenly, the gale dissipated. Jiangxi woke up from his trance and saw the lady in front of him. He instinctively dodged but did not control his speed well. He was gone, 10 kilometers away. Riverward's expression was stunned. His speed just now was too fast. And he did not use much strength. With a thought, he appeared here like a gale. "Hey! Why are you running?" Just as Jiangxi was stunned, a beam of light appeared in front of him. The lady appeared again. "Are you a human or a ghost?" Jiangxi asked an old question. It was also the most reasonable question under such circumstances. "Ha, I'm a ghost! Ah woo! Ah woo!" Instantly, the lady turned into a green-faced ghost with fangs. She opened her bloody mouth. "If you didn't make two ah woo sounds, I would really believe it. You're the spirit of the illusion?" After Jiangxi calmed down, he guessed the lady's identity. "Boring!" The lady turned back from her green face and fangs. She was not extremely beautiful, but she was pleasing to the eye and unforgettable. "I'm An Shang, the spirit of the illusion here. You passed the inheritance trial, so I can come out to meet you," she said with a smile. "First of all, congratulations, Jiangxi. You used 1 year and 28 days to comprehend the Jade Lake's inheritance, true intent of Gale. This result is ranked 9th in the history of Lingwan Road. Is there a reward? No, the Jade Pool has been abandoned for many years. If it was 100,000 years ago, with your talent, the Jade Pool would definitely focus on nurturing you. If nothing goes wrong, you might have a chance to touch the immortal path." An Shang's expression was very gloomy. Riverward, however, was incomparably shocked. An Shang's words revealed too much shocking information. The Jade Lake had been abandoned for many years. 100,000 years ago. Immortal Tao. Big Sister Nick Hang, the immortal Tao? Could there really be immortals? Or are you an immortal? Jiangxi suppressed the shock in his heart and hurriedly asked. "Ha!" An Shang was amused by Jiangxi's words and laughed. "I'm not an immortal. I don't know if there are still immortals. When I was born, there were no immortals in the Jade Pool, but there were always legends of the immortal path." An Shang smiled. Jiangxi was silent for a long time before he completely digested the information contained in this sentence. What he could confirm was that An Shang was neither an immortal nor a human. "Alright, you're just a small cultivator who hasn't even formed a golden core. Don't think about this. If there really are immortals, you're not even an ant in front of them." Jiangxi realized that this sister was really good at mocking people. However, what was a golden core? It sounded like something from a Xianxia novel. "Sister An Shang, what's a golden core? Has the orthodoxy of the human world declined to such a state? You've already formed a spirit, but you don't even know what a golden core is?" An Shang was very surprised. Jiangxi shook his head. "Alright, the ignorant are fearless. No wonder you little fellows who haven't even reached the golden core stage have the guts to enter the Jade Pool." An Shang was a little speechless. Then, she explained. In the path of cultivation, you can only be considered a cultivator after forming your spiritual consciousness. Spirit formation, golden core, nascent soul, essence soul, and Tao integration are the 5 stages of cultivation. You've just entered the spirit formation stage. If it were in the past, you wouldn't even be qualified to enter the jade pool. These words made Jiang Xi speechless. So, before the spirit formation stage, he couldn't even be considered a cultivator. However, he wasn't frightened by Naishang's words. With the experience points panel, as long as he had enough time and experience points, he could fight his way up no matter how high the stage was. At this moment, Naishang changed the topic and said with a smile, "But speaking of which, you little fellows have top-notch talent and comprehension. Especially the one called Xian Tian. He's the one with the best comprehension ability among all of you. Even without the help of any inheritance, he managed to comprehend the pinnacle of saber true intent. If it were 100,000 years ago, he would have definitely become a saint of some orthodoxy. Unfortunately, he's not suitable for the Jade Pool's wind inheritance. Otherwise, the sword intent of Gale wouldn't be yours." Jiang Xi was silent. This sister's dictionary didn't have the word tactful. However, the sword intent that Naishang mentioned made Jiang Xi very interested. It turned out that the shocking sword intent that Xian Tian displayed previously was the sword intent. "Sister Naishang, what's the sword intent? I can't explain it clearly because I'm only an artifact spirit and can't comprehend these. In short, it's related to Tao. Under normal circumstances, if a golden core cultivator can comprehend the Tao intent, he's already considered a genius. Those who can comprehend the Tao intent in the spirit formation stage are few and far between. That's why I said that Xian Tian's comprehension is better than yours." And Naishang chuckled. "Tao? It's getting more and more mysterious." Jiang Xi remembered this word in his heart. As for Naishang saying that Xian Tian's comprehension was better than his, Jiang Xi smiled. Xian Tian was the number 1 person in the Spirit Qi revival era. Jiang Xi just smiled. How could it be a joke? He was not jealous because his path was different from Xian Tian's. And Naishang nodded secretly, admiring Jiang Xi's character very much. She knew that she did not find the wrong person for this legacy. Next, Jiang Xi asked Naishang many questions about cultivation. For example, the difference between the sword intent and Gale intent, the cultivation method of golden core, and so on. And Naishang answered him one by one, allowing him to gain a lot. After a long time, Jiang Xi suddenly lost interest in chatting. "Sister Naishang, if there's nothing else, I'll leave now." He had more or less understood what he needed to know. There was nothing to be reluctant to leave here, so he might as well go back. After leaving home for more than a year, he was especially homesick now. His longing and worry for Jiangdude also became even stronger. "Alright, but you have to remember that when your essence spirit condenses, you must make a trip here again. At that time, there'll be a big gift for you," and Naishang reminded. "Oh? Can't you give it to me now?" Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. "No. With your current strength, you can't control it yet. It'll be harmful instead." And Naishang shook her head. Then, she waved her sleeves, and a passage appeared in front of Jiang Xi. It was exactly the same as the trial passage when he first came in. Jiang Xi waved and walked into the passage. "Goodbye, Sister Naishang." "Goodbye." After Jiang Xi left, the entrance also disappeared. And Naishang sighed. "Sister Feng, there's finally someone who comprehended your legacy. But where are you now?" With a faint voice, she turned into a 5-colored light again and disappeared in the inheritance space. At the same time, the heaven-reaching tower that had existed for many years slowly disappeared into the fog of the Jade Pool. Chapter 171. At the lake at the summit of Mount Tongtian. Near the entrance of the Jade Lake, there was a new military camp. This military camp was jointly built by the military of the Xia Kingdom and Zhenten Budokan. Its purpose was to guard everything in the Jade Pool's secret realm. Of course, the most important thing was to prevent anyone from discovering the entrance to the Jade Pool. In the sentry post by the lake, a military martial artist who was monitoring the lake suddenly changed his expression and quickly sounded the alarm. Attention all units! Attention all units! There is an abnormal situation on the lake! There is an abnormal situation on the lake! Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 A-level martial artists from the military of the Xia Kingdom and Genten Budokan arrived at the same time. The A-level martial artist from Genten Budokan was Jiangxi's teacher in the training camp, Yulin. The military martial artists stationed here also quickly gathered and were ready for battle. They stared at the lake closely. A ripple grew bigger and bigger, and eventually formed a whirlpool. Swoosh! A figure rolled up the whirlpool and broke out of the water, then landed lightly by the lake. This person's long hair covered his face, and his face was full of curly beard. He looked very sloppy. Who are you? Yulin shouted, and his long sword was ready to attack. Teacher, you don't even recognize me? Jiangxi! Yulin exclaimed, but he did not let down his guard. Jiangxi shook his head and smiled. He waved his hand and used his spiritual power to clean his long hair and beard that he had not cut for more than a year. At this time, Yulin really let down his guard. Then, his eyes quickly filled with tears. As he cried, he laughed heartily. I knew it! I knew it! You, Jiangxi, won't die so easily! Yulin had taken the initiative to apply to be stationed in the Jade Pool's secret realm. Otherwise, with his strength, it would be a waste of talent to be stationed here. It was because he did not believe that Jiangxi was dead. Now, the facts proved that he was right. Jiangxi was really not dead. At the lakeside, other than Yulin who was laughing, the other military martial artists from the Great Xia Kingdom and the Genten Budokan martial artists were all stunned by this scene in the past 6 months. The biggest news in the global martial arts world was the death of the 5th elder of Genten Budokan, Jiangxi. But now, Riverward had given them a live performance of a living person. Teacher, long time no see! Jiangxi waited for Yulin to laugh for a while before he said with a smile. Haha, good, as long as you're alive. Yulin was still very excited. Then, he suddenly reacted and shook his head. I won't take up any more of your time. Let's go home and take a look. There's a transport plane outside Death Valley. Teacher, let's talk again next time. Jiangxi nodded and left quickly. He didn't hide his speed. His figure flashed, and a gust of wind blew past, instantly disappearing from the military camp. So fast! Yulin and the other Class A martial artists looked at each other in astonishment. With this speed, if he wanted to kill them, it would only take one move. Quick! Spread the news. Haha! The martial arts world is going to be lively again! After regaining his senses, Yulin laughed heartily again. One of them notified the Genten Budokan, while the other notified the higher-ups of the Great Xia Kingdom's military. Xiantian City. After listening to White Cloud's report, Xiantian also laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, this kid always does things that surprise people. How did he survive for a year and a month? He must have encountered something that we didn't expect. White Cloud laughed. Wind Shadow Steps, it must be the Wind Shadow Steps, Xiantian said decisively. White Cloud nodded and agreed with this guess. Then, he said hesitantly, Teacher, there's one more thing. Jiangxi has returned to Pak Sun Province. Isn't it normal to go home? But yesterday, Jiangxi's sister and his teacher were attacked and almost lost their lives. What is Qinyuan doing? Xiantian frowned. He hadn't heard of this yet. The opponents were all men of sacrifice. Qinyuan couldn't be on guard all the time. White Cloud shook his head. Xiantian knew that this matter couldn't be blamed on Qinyuan. He asked again. Did you find out who was behind this? The Ma family of Chang'an. White Cloud said in a serious tone. Xiantian instantly understood. Jiangxi had killed the only son of the Ma family. With this layer of hatred, it was not difficult to understand why the other party would attack. He thought for a while and suddenly laughed. I've always wanted to test the waters of the reclusive families. This time, let Jiangxi make a scene. You go to Chang'an and guard it first. If they attack Jiangxi, you can come out. White Cloud smiled. He liked to join in the fun. In a secret place in Shuntian Prefecture of the Great Xia Empire, Huang Kun laughed heartily after receiving the news that Jiangxi was still alive. At the same time, he also heard about what the Ma family had done. He was silent for a while and said to the guard beside him, "With this kind of hatred, maybe Jiangxi will attack. Get me a call from the Qin family. I want to invite Qin Chi to Chang'an. Only he can protect Jiangxi." Xian Tian and Huang Kun's arrangement had one thing in common. In their opinion, Jiangxi's strength was far inferior to the Ma family. Therefore, they sent someone to protect Jiangxi's life. At this time, Jiangxi was on a transport plane back to Paksun province. As soon as he took off, he used his tactical communications watch to call Jiang Daoda. "Daoda will definitely scold me," Jiangxi thought to himself. "If she wants to scold me, then so be it. It's my fault for standing her up." He said he would be back soon, but in the end, he disappeared for more than a year and a month. The call was picked up after a long time. Jiang Daoda's virtual shadow appeared in front of him. Then, a sobbing voice came through. "Liar, you big liar!" Jiang Daoda just cried and kept repeating this sentence. This made Jiangxi's heart ache. After a long time, the crying subsided. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Jiangxi apologized honestly. "Then hurry up and go home." Jiang Daoda was surprisingly understanding. "I'll be home in 10 minutes. "Ah? So fast?" "Yes." Suddenly, Jiang Daoda's virtual shadow disappeared. Jiangxi didn't say anything and just shook his head. He had some doubts in his heart. He just noticed that Jiang Daoda's tone seemed to be a little weak. However, he couldn't find out the specific situation through the virtual shadow. "Anyway, I'll be able to see her in 10 minutes. Jiangxi threw his doubts aside, closed his eyes to rest, and secretly opened the experience panel. Cultivation, Spirit Nurture, Early Stage 27001528000, Cultivation Technique, 5 Elements Deed of Thorough Comprehension, Peacock Visualization Martial Technique, 9 Elements Sword Technique, Combined 300,003,0000, Wind God Escape, Level 9 900,009,0000, Tao Art, Gale True Intent, 1. 5 million, Amplitude, 1 Deduction, 10,000 Experience Points per time Experience Points, 272585. On the panel, there was a new Tao Art column. This made Jiangxi confirm that it was like what Spirit of the Illusion, Nick Hang, said. True Intent was indeed related to the so-called Tao. Gale True Intent requires 500,000 experience points to be perfected. There's still a long way to go. Of course, the benefits brought by the high difficulty level were obvious. Just the preliminary comprehension of the Gale True Intent had already made a qualitative leap in his strength. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.